I do see the Vice Mayor has joined us. Jerry's here, Valerie and Danielle are here. All right, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to do a call
Luke's
to
here.
order.
Luke's here too.
I called you first. So Luke Chesek. I'm having doubts, Luke, that you're
here.
Jared Stolfus. Oh God. All right, Valerie Woodall. Jared, are you here? I don't think he could hear us. Valerie, Danielle.
I'm here.
I'm here. All right, and I see Jared. So we have full quorum. Jared, can you hear me or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I take it that he might not be able to hear me, but he's here and I need him. All right. So I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:01. We have full quorum on deck. We're going to do number 2, review of the agenda. The Mayor and Council will review the agenda. Vice Mayor Chesek, can you go ahead and do a read through of the agenda, please?
Sure. We've got number 1, call to order, 2, review the agenda, 3, presentation and discussion on PG County's native tree planting program, 4, presentation and discussing on partnering with GW, their School of Public Policy and Public Administration, 5, Spring and Rogers Park, 6, presentation and discussing on WMATA's recently released bus redesign, 7, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month Proclamation, 8, discussion on a proposal of adding a line item in the FY24 budget for African American history, 9, discussion on a recommendation for the creation of an African American History Committee, 10, ARPA discussion and update, 11, discussion on proposed council recess for July and August, 12, discussion on committee assignments, 13, presentation of minutes, 14, adjournment.
All right, thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, so Jerry's gonna log back in and he's having a little bit of technical difficulties. So go ahead, Jared. All right, so is there, you guys saw there anything you guys need to remove from this agenda? Speak now or when the item comes on. All right, moving on to item number 3, presentation discussion Prince George's County Native Tree Planting Program. Ms. Mary Abe of the County's Department of Environmental DOE will present to the council. So Luke, I'm gonna have you to, when you're reading the agenda, go ahead and read the subsections as well, okay? So that way, when I read it, I just go directly to it. All right? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll read it this time because if not, I spend a lot of time reading it. All right, Mary Eve, the County's Department of Environmental DOE will present to the council an overview of the upcoming DOE program to plant native trees at no cost of residential, commercial, church, or city property and potential opportunities to partner with the city. So Mary Abe, I know you're here, so the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, hello, Mayor. Hello, Mount Rainier. I'm a Mount Rainier citizen, so this is a fun opportunity for me to speak out and tell you about what's going on. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll try to go through the program pretty briefly, pretty quickly. Host disabled. There we go.
You get it to her, Melissa?
Can you enable the sharing screen?
Melissa, can you go ahead and do that, please?
All right, there we go. Can you see my screen? You're good to go. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for number 1 for taking time from your schedule to allow us to present. I'm Mary Abe. I'm a Mount Rainier resident since 2007, but I also work in Prince George's County government in the Department of the Environment. And tonight I'm really here to talk with you about a pretty cool program that DOE has stood up through funding through CBT. It's the Urban Tree Grant Program. And this is the beginning of what I believe will be a long-term program that the county will offer to the municipalities, residences, churches, schools, businesses in the equity areas for low to no cost tree installations. And just to briefly go over it, basically what we're talking about is installing street tree size trees, 2 to 2.5 inch caliber trees. That's a tree that's anywhere from 10 to 14 feet tall, has a trunk about 6 inches from the ground. That is, if you were to measure it across, it would be 2 inches. So it's a tree that's at least probably 5, maybe 8 years old, depending on the size and the quality of the trees. All these trees would have to be native. And the county is working with our contractor, the Clean Water Partnership, who will be our installer, working with local contractors and other contractors to install the trees at no cost. The areas that we are able to put trees in for the town are the right-of-way, public spaces, parks, with the proper land permissions, the schools. Then we are also, our program is now going to phase into residential plantings, where we will plant essentially very similar to how Tree Montgomery has done, where you basically will sign up and you select what trees that you would want, and we will come in and install. The only hitch to this is that everybody has to agree to maintain these trees, because really what this is about building climate resilience and building our county's tree canopy towards urban heat island impacts and addressing equity issues. Just as a quick note, there is limited money for impervious removals and stump grinding so that we can basically put the trees in. If you have something like a bunch of Bradford pears, which need to be removed, this program could potentially pay for them, take the stumps out, and put a native tree in its place. So again, what we're really trying to do is establish a tree canopy in our more urban areas and our areas that are considered disadvantaged by the state of Maryland. So this all leads back to one thing. This is about, from our perspective, this is about the climate action plan and equity and environmental justice. And so what does a tree do? It cools the cities, it cleans the air, it captures carbon, it reduces runoff, and it is an equity situation where, unfortunately, in the inner parts of our beltway, where most of our urban areas are, we unfortunately lack tree cover. We actually have a tree cover by subwatershed. And so basically, it's as simple as it gets. We'll put the trees in for you. We would need help maintaining the trees. We're not going to be able to do that for the life of the tree. But essentially, once we do a planting plan and we work with the town, the green teams, we identify where you want the trees to go, we'll schedule them. One of the things that we are going to do, we're going to put tree diapers on the trees, not to be confused with gator bags, so that will cut down on potential watering of the trees, because basically those are systems which can be recharged through rainwater directly, and it'll last for about 30 days. Those bags, or those bags around the trees, they last for about 3 years, and that's just about enough time for a tree establishment. So essentially, the Urban Tree Grant Program, it was offered through CBT, and it uses the Maryland DNR equity mapping. And as you can see from my slide presentation, Mount Rainier is in there. Oddly, though, we have some sister communities that didn't make it into the mapping, and we've alerted to them to that. And so we used Maryland, the EJ screening map. We will be putting trees in Brentwood, Cottage City, and North Brentwood too. So if you see a hole on the map, know that the county is very aware of it, and we're working with Maryland DNR about how to address that so that there's no confusion. And this is really when we really want to decide whether or not an area is eligible and it's not in the Maryland DNR mapping, we do fall back on the MDE equity mapping. So quickly, the county has done a study of the tree canopy in our county. We've broken it up by subwatershed. I don't have the exact numbers for Mount Rainier, but the county talks about having a canopy of 50%, but that's across the entire county. And that doesn't do a lot of good in an urban area if your tree canopy is less. And inevitably in an urban scenario, it will be less because of development. We understand that. But what we're trying to do is trying to find ways to really focus at a sub-watershed level and say, okay, if this sub-watershed, let's just say Dueling Creek has 35% tree canopy, we're going to do our best to try to get it up to that 50% that the rest of the county enjoys. Is that possible? Probably not, but you have to have a goal. And so this is really about trying to find ways to squeeze those trees in wherever we can, because with climate change and heat and the stormwater benefits of trees, this is really where we want to go. And I do want to say that this program will cover edible natives. The problem is the edible natives, such as the pawpaws and the persimmons, they tend to be smaller trees rather than the larger 2 to 2.5. So we have a way to kind of deal with that, but we can't guarantee exactly every single tree that we get, but we'll strive to get a certain amount of them. But pawpaws, edibles, persimmons, those are some of the trees that you can plant. And then essentially what we're hoping we can do, the county, we have to be really clear. I know a lot of people think that the county is just oozing in money and capacity. Well, we're not. We need your help. We need your help as the trusted voices of the community. That means the green team. That means the mayor and the council to help us message about this program, because we think that this is a really great program that we'd like to see all our residences or whoever's interested in a tree to put it in. So that's going to take really your voicing about this program. One thing that's is important to know for the residential and commercial and non-government entities, a right of access will have to be signed in a maintenance agreement. It's not going to be onerous. It's just going to basically be saying, I'm committing to maintaining this tree, watering this tree, and committing to understanding that this tree is part of climate resilience. So for the municipalities, we will have an agreement that we will work out through our partner, the Clean Water Partnership, that they'll work with the municipality to make sure that we've got all the access agreements that are needed in order to install trees in the right of way. Obviously, things like utility conflicts and things like that are going to have to be resolved in all cases. So really, this is about our warranty for the trees will be about 1.5 years. And after that, it will be up to the municipality to take it on. So if a tree dies within that warranty period and it's of no vandalism or something else, then we will replace it. But after that, it would be up to the municipalities, if it's in the right of way, to be responsible for a replacement. So, so again, land ownership confirming that you have rights to put the tree in the place that you live. If you are a renter and you want to plant a tree, you can do that, but you've got to get your landowners or your whoever whoever owns the house to sign off on the agreement. So I don't want this to feel like we don't want people that are renting to say, I'd really like to have a tree, but ultimately the landlord owns the land. And so there does have to be a signed agreement that the landowner has agreed to this tree. Let's see, what else? I'm just going to highlight quickly a couple things that are coming up that might be of interest because it is about resilience. Prince George's County is launching a climate smart local producers pilot program. Well, we will have available $2.5 million in grant available to urban farmers. We were awarded this grant from USDA back in January of this year, and it's taken us time to go through the negotiations. But this is something that if you have any urban farmers in the community, we want to get the word out on this, up to $100,000 per farmer for a new startup. We're really trying to target the disadvantaged, the urban farmer, and then there's other grant opportunities, but it's really going to be great. The trick to this program is it must be a smart commodity. And what does a smart commodity mean? It means that you're cutting down on your emissions to produce it. You're producing something that in the grand scheme of things is in a holistic cycle of production. Maybe you don't travel as far. Maybe you use packaging that isn't plastic and it's cardboard. The producer or the farmer uses solar or some sort of renewable energy. There's all these different practices that we have or land cover. And then I just want to mention We are really trying to work hard to revamp our rain check rebate program to really intersect with climate change. And we've been saying it for a while, conservation landscaping is going to be available, but we have to approve certain internal regulations, and that's just about done. So we do believe that that's going to be offered later this summer. And we haven't finalized it yet, but we believe we'll be offering many grants for community gardens, which use regenerative soil practices. And again, all of this is in the lens of climate action. And then a little bit about conservation landscaping. Really what this is all about, between the tree cover, the conservation landscaping, impervious removal, it all comes down to land cover, period. If you have a lawn, it gets hotter than if you do a native landscape. If you don't have a tree, your roof will be hotter. And so when you make changes in the landscape, be it you convert lawn to conservation landscaping or native planting, or you put tree canopy so that it covers over your roof or it covers over your lawn, you're getting ready for climate change because you're cooling the environment, you're making habitat, you're providing shade. There's just so many different benefits. It's just so different from an impervious surface or lawn. And that's just a little bit about the conservation landscaping. What's kind of cool about that, we have a formula that will allow people to use non-native edible plants in their landscape as part of the formula. It's almost like a 75-25 split. You have to use 75% natives, but you will be allowed to participate and use edibles such as fruit trees, a fig tree, whatever it would be, as long as it's not invasive. We have to approve it, and that will be part of that that rebate system. And quick thing, just to know, your neighbors down in Brentwood and North Brentwood, they're going to be part of a community pilot blitz where we are going to be concentrating rain check rebates, no cost installations in Brentwood and North Brentwood. They were our community pilot that we're trying to do this. So the county's trying to find different ways in which to get these practices in the ground. And again, want to shout out, if we have any master gardeners in the community, we're going to engage them. If we don't have any master gardeners in Prince George, in Mount Rainier, we really want to push that program because we feel that's a trusted voice in the community, like the green teams that can support the green teams, support the canopy, support the rain check rebate. And I guess that's it. So do you have any questions?
Thank you so much, Mary A. A lot of useful information. So I'm going to go to council, and I also see some comments on the chat. I'll go back to them and I will ask them whether they want me to read them or they would like for me to for them to speak. Okay, so council, we have a target time to finish. Keep that in mind. I'm just saying. Jared, I see your hand up. Go ahead. Luke, I'm going to go after with you. Go ahead.
And I will be quick. Mary, thank you so much for coming in tonight. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the information. I'm really excited at everything you're laying out before us. So a quick question. I wasn't entirely clear. How does this sync with the existing rain check program? The 6,000 that's available to homeowners, some of it appears individually directed and some not.
You mean for the conservation landscaping?
Yep. And trees.
It is. Okay. The urban tree grant program that I'm describing is not part of the rain check rebate. So you could get, if you've maxed out on your rain check rebate and you're in Mount Rainier and you want some trees, give us a call. We'll put them in. And so that's the first part. The conservation landscape is a practice in the rain check rebate. So if you've maxed out, then you've maxed out for your residents. And so it's the equivalent of, let's say, if I didn't want to do a rain garden, but I wanted to do conservation landscaping, I would get the rebate. I believe it's a $5 per square foot for the conservation landscaping. And really what this is about, land cover changes, really is. And it's about also supporting pollinators and slowing the water and soaking it up, because a lot of folks don't have the ability to put a rain garden in because you're holding that water. When you do conservation landscaping, it can act as a filter, it can interrupt the flow, it can soak it up, without puddling or ponding, rather, that's the appropriate term. And you can build in edible landscape. And from our perspective, that's a really good thing. That's about building a healthy food system and climate resilience by, having an opportunity to have your own food in your own yard.
So Mary, thank you. And I appreciate that clarity. I think one thing I've noticed with the Brain Check program, because I've talked to a lot of residents about it, is that folks tend to want to use it for the impermeable surface removal, impermeable installation, because that's one of the most pernicious problems here. That's what I used it for. I had all this concrete everywhere, and I was able to really fix a lot of the water issues that I had. But in doing that, I maxed out the grant and, would not have been able to, do anything with like purchase additional trees, which are also eligible. So that's really helpful that you segmented that out. And I appreciate you all setting up the program design in a way that would allow folks to tap into those additional assets and improve our tree cover, especially if they've already used the program. So thank you. That's all my questions, Selena.
Oh, yeah. We only have 5 minutes left on the clock on this item. Luke, go ahead.
No, I would just say thank you. And what are the next steps for us to be involved and do things?
The next steps are from our program. We've already selected our first pilot, I guess you could say our beta project, where we're putting in the trees, and that will be Forest Heights, where we're working with them to put their right-of-way trees in. Because of the seasonality of tree plantings, I don't expect that the tree plantings in Mount Rainier could occur until the fall, so which gives us time. So if we have time to work with your green team, to work with your stakeholders, it's really on your schedule. I just know that in the summertime, we really don't want to be putting trees in, even with the tree diapers around it. So we're going to put these trees in this particular community first, and then we're going to start moving down the queue.
How much lead time do you need to work with the green team or the tree commission or the city in order to get this ready for the fall?
I would like to, we have our team together now. Our design team, which will be Low Impact Development Center, will be helping us with tree placement and tree planting. And so I would say if we could have at least 3 weeks lead time to schedule, and then I can start through. The first step will happen is maybe we'll have DOE staff come out and walk with the green team and get an overall feel. We actually have a tree app for tracking where we're going to try to put the trees. And then what will happen is we'll turn it over to our consultants to take those recommendations and then truly turn it into a planting plan with a planting schedule with the recommended species and availability. And so that whole process, I'm imagining start to finish would be a 2-month process, between back and forth and working with folks. For the residential plantings, we're still standing that up because what we have to do is create a grant center portal so that when we advertise it, there'll be a portal that someone will be able to go to and put their address in and say how many trees they want, and then somebody will come and visit them. So we're trying to set that up like Tree Montgomery. And that just takes a little bit of time. So the residential end of it, people have to be a little bit patient. I would imagine we'll be able to start satisfying those requests sometime probably late fall. And really the best time for planting, to be honest, is late fall through winter. Yep. I mean, those are the best times. So that would be what I would expect, is that if we expect the process for right-of-way planning to be in phases. If it turns out that something is like what I need from the city is to understand, where are you thinking you're going to replace a sidewalk? Is there some kind of improvement project that you think could actually hurt the trees or delay the installation? So there'll have to be some interaction there. In conversation with you, Luke, you had said that you wanted us to work with the apartment complex, Queens, we're all in. So we'll do whatever we can to support. And, so it's a process. We're going to have a learning curve because we're really trying to build a system. As we like to say, we're building it as we fly it, which is never the best situation, but there's no time like right now. And we don't have any time to waste with climate.
So, great. Council, we have less than 2 minutes on the clock. Can I have a motion to add 10 more minutes realistically?
So moved.
Second.
It's been probably moved and second. Any discussion? Objection, abstention, here none. We're gonna add 10 more minutes to this item. Try to keep yourself to your own time, okay? Because if not, I cannot guarantee 9:30. So you know. All right, Valerie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This is very exciting information. So thank you for coming to present. I think the fall is a great time also because that's when the county growing green with pride is. So that's a good time to think about when all the volunteers can come out and help with this kind of work. So I know the 2 local elementary schools are both green schools and probably could use some work and help with, planting trees and things like that. So I would also recommend working with our tree commission as well because they've done a lot of work to map current trees in the city. So, just make sure you reach out to them as well as the green team. And I don't think I have any questions right now. It sounds really great. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your grant programs and things like that as well. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Valerie. Danielle?
Yes, hi, Mary. Thank you so much for coming in. I really enjoyed your presentation. We just lost 2 trees last year in our backyard due to disease. So we just the fact that somebody is willing to come in and plant trees, it just, warms my heart because I really miss them. My question to you is, I thought I heard you say, and I just want to get clear. Did you say that the landowners would actually be able to choose from the list of native trees which one they want on their property, or are you
preferred? Because we're trying to do is we're trying to maximize scale, and so we know we have a plant list, a native plant list, and so I know everybody's I want a pawpaw. We won't be able to get all the pawpaws, but
I was thinking dogwood, but
well, dogwood should be easy enough. But so there will be a list that you will choose from. We will try to always get the first choice, and there'll be a second choice. Part of our list, we have American holly, southern magnolia, Virginia cedar, various different types of deciduous. We're trying to encourage people from a very realistic view to try to keep their trees in their yards, unless they have a really big yard, to what I would call medium-sized trees, so that we one day don't have a problem with a neighbor freaking out that there's a 60 or 80-foot tree that everyone's afraid for whatever reason it's going to come down. So we're really trying to steer people towards that. It's not to say we don't plant the larger trees in there, because let's be real, 2.5-inch caliber trees going to take quite a few years to get there. But I'm just putting that out there. So our designers and our staff will help direct, but certainly what your wishes are. And the other thing we're hoping to do, we really want to take this in a lens of climate resilience. And so planting trees by your HVAC or someplace that's an intake to provide shade and shade on the house, passive, energy savings is another thing, and wind buffers and all sorts of things. So we really are hoping to take that. And we also want to keep an eye out for solar access. Like if you think that you're going to put solar panels on, that's going to impact where you put your trees. So just be aware of all those different aspects.
So then just to get clear, it's not necessarily in the tree box. It can be anywhere in your yard.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your information.
Thank you so much. Mary, thank you for being here. I have a couple follow-up questions. So yeah, definitely I agree with the team to make sure we work with the green team and the tree commission, but also with our communications team to make sure that if you have any information from them to put out, like links, flyers, anything as such, it goes out so that we could help spread the word in our residents.
Okay.
The other thing is, I believe it's the tree commission. They have put certain recommendations together, various trees to put on the right of way. So it'd be good for them to also work with the community to ideally aim, if it's in the right of way, right? To aim at making sure that those are the trees we're selecting. And obviously Mr. Kamali is here, and Rocio will probably be the other two to work in collaboration for our team. But I think that at least those two collectives should be able to help get the message, but also figure out what to do. I believe, Valerie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's over 1,000 trees that they already mapped out, the tree commission. So that way, that's part of the things of they'll be in your list, but also they'll be, especially if they're in the city, we'll be adding them to our list as well to make sure that they're taken care of. So there's a plan for them. So that'll be my ask, and thank you for always making sure you bring the information directly to us. You've been a big advocate for the environment. We're very happy to have you here, and even happier that you're a Mount Rainier resident. I will say that, but I'll also let the other mayors know about it so that they could reach out to you, because I'm sure Brent will be also happy to get this information.
They're presenting. We're presenting tonight. I have one of my team members over there presenting. So it's but yes, please spread the word. This is about holistically looking at all of the spaces in the county to try to find places to put trees.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And obviously count with the whole team is like very green. So we're happy to be here. Okay. So I'm going to open up the floor next to Sarah. Sarah, who is our chair of our green team. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for the presentation. This sounds like a great program. I'm thinking about what you mentioned about the removal, and thinking particularly about public spaces. I can think of places that could use trees, but the existing foliage there is completely vine choked. Is there any kind of invasive vine remediation, or is that something more that like you'd be looking to volunteers to take on?
Unfortunately, right now, we don't have a program specifically for that. That said, through the stewardship grant program, the stormwater stewardship grant program, I believe we will be offering a track for maintenance this coming fall. And so we encourage nonprofit partners, community partners, or even a municipality to participate or to put an application in. You have to be very specific about where you want to do the invasive removals, but we very much understand that the invasive problem is a big issue. And so there's more to come, but I do know that in the fall, you should have some sort of opportunity to potentially apply for that kind of support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So definitely you're going to be working very close with them. We do have a question from Mary Lee. Mary Lee, do you want me to read it or do you want to speak on it?
I can read it.
Go ahead.
Hi, Mary. This is Mary Lee from the Tree Commission. So thanks for being here. Yeah, I had a question. I was particularly interested in what you said about pavement removal. Mm-hmm. And in particular, this is linked to, we have particular areas in the city where there's just not a lot of tree box space. So the tree box, that's the area between the sidewalk and the curb. And you live here, so you know there's certain areas, for example, on 31st, where the tree boxes are very small. And so it limits our ability to plant trees there. So I was interested in learning more about your pavement removal.
Do you hear that?
Yeah,
team, can you do me a favor? Can you make sure you mute any other mics? So Council, go ahead and mute your mics as well.
There's
what?
Zoom
what?
bombing.
No.
So can you shut down the person, team? If not, we'll log out and log back in, okay?
Yeah, and don't admit anyone else. No.
Yeah.
Larry,
so lock it up.
Looks like a Larry part. Do we need to log out?
I think you might be fine. Melissa, Jared, where are we with it? We're good? Okay, so just leave them there. At this point, we're not going to let nobody in, okay? So, let me I think you might be fine. And don't let nobody in the room. You still have sharing capability. Can you give it back to Melissa? And then everybody else, if you guys could like mute your mic. Jerry, your mic is open. Okay. Let me see. So Mary Lee, the floor is yours. Go ahead. You were cut off.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so just a question about pavement removal because of small tree boxes. If you guys would do that and also install FlexiPave, which we've done in certain areas of the city to just allow for more space for trees. And I was wondering if that's part of the program at all.
We have we have limited funding for that, but because of our funding source, there's only so much that we can do. because our fund is it's a tree forest conservation fund. And so I have some latitude, but it's not like I can go in and do a whole street. And so if there is an area that has absolutely no trees, and this is the only way to get trees in, we can certainly look at it and see if we can work that in. But I cannot say that we could do that for the entire city, because that becomes a pretty big lift in terms of eating into a budget that should be reserved for actual plant stock. But we can certainly take a look on a limited basis and see how that can work out, and really what is the win-win. Like if it's an area that simply has no trees and it's in a high volume area where people are walking, we can look into ways to do that.
Okay. Anything else, Mary Lee? We're good?
No, thank you. That's helpful.
All right, perfect. And thank you so much for your work with the tree commission and all the tree commissioners as well. Okay, is there anybody else that is here that wishes to speak? Make sure you put your name, last name, block and street number so we could call upon you. Jared, is there anything on Facebook? Jared. Okay, guys, if we don't have any more questions or anything else, time is up. Mary A, thank you so much for the information, and we'll go ahead and work along to make sure this program gets through the city as well. So thank you as well for your great work through the years. Okay?
No worries. Thank you so much for the time.
All right, perfect. Have a good night.
Good night.
Could you please stop sharing?
Hold on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to item number 4, presentation discussion partnering with the George Washington. Yeah, look, this is what you read. The George Washington University Trachtenberg School of Public Policy and Public Administration. The Trachtenberg School Director of Administration Operations, Ms. Kay Rosa, will present an overview of graduate school capstone program, where graduate students spend a semester applying their learning to address a real-world public policy issue. Councilor Cheshko proposed that the city considers applying to a program for purpose of having the students help design economic development plan for Rhode Island Avenue for a cost-benefit perspective. All right. So Luke, do you I think I decide Ms. Kay Rosa, you're here, so you want me to just let her present, and then I'll ask you to speak first after her?
I can just drop in with a little bit of context here for folks that might be helpful, and then
1 minute context. Go ahead.
Yep. So Kate is a Mount Rainier resident. She lives here, and she reached out to me about the potential for this program she helps run at GW, and these wonderful grad students. The graduate program at GW around public policy is really well regarded. A lot of very smart people who could help the city if we wanted to apply for their capstone program. And we talked about a few options. One of the priorities for me going into these last 2 years that I have an office here is economic development along Route 1. And so that's a potential project here that we could apply to, which I can talk about at the end, and just hand it over to Kate now to give you an overview.
Yeah,
Thank you so much,
absolutely.
Kate. The floor is yours.
Awesome. And in the meantime, I have gone ahead and put our capstone website into the chat for everyone. So really happy to be here. I also have taken advantage of the rain check rebate. So again, I don't mind following Mary up. I learned a lot myself. I am not only here, of course, as a Mount Rainier resident, but of course, representing the Trachtenberg School of Public Policy and Public Administration. We have a capstone course that you can almost consider a consulting project. So I really want you guys to be thinking about the different possible, problems that our students can be solving for Mount Rainier from that perspective. But before we jump into the capstone, I did want to talk a little bit about who we are at Trachtenberg. I assume that most of you guys have heard of the George Washington University, right in Foggy Bottom, and we are a premier DC area program based within the George Washington University that specifically meets the needs of Master of Public Policy students, public administration students, as well as environmental resource policy students. Just last month, we were named as a top 10 policy school internationally by US News and World Report. And we also ranked in the top 10 as an urban policy program as well. So this is part of the reason why, being new to my role, or rather new, I really wanted to have the opportunity to explore how Mount Rainier might be able to take advantage of the pro bono consulting work that we offer. One of the cool things about our program in particular is that the majority of our Trachtenberg students do have substantial work experience, as our program does skew towards the working professional graduate program. So as you are thinking about these, student consultants coming on to work with Mount Rainier, the majority of them do again have work experience and at the very least have interned in the area. We do have 14 fields of study that mean that quite a few of our students have been working on urban policy in one way or another as well. And so now let's jump into the Trachtenberg capstone in particular and what's involved. The client would be Mount Rainier in this case, if you guys decided to apply to take part in this opportunity. And Mount Rainier would provide Trachtenberg with a research question by June 15th. Projects will be assigned in late July, and in early September, our students will have the opportunity to really dive deep into said research question that Mount Rainier is trying to solve. Or you could think of it as an analytical problem that Mount Rainier is trying to solve. We do have about 40 hours being dedicated to this project on a weekly basis between September and December. So you will have the opportunity to dive deep into, again, a substantial question. Our students can assist with data, literature reviews. They can actually canvass the area as well, just to name a couple different ways that you might be utilizing said students. Of course, they'll have their own recommendations as well, as will their faculty. And at the end of the course, the students will provide the client, again, Mount Rainier, with a report including actionable solutions or recommendations. We have a capstone expo that does have our students presenting a poster that highlights said recommendations as well. And the students can also, if the client decides to move forward with this option, provide a presentation as well. So it is a really nice way, again, to get pro bono consulting work. The clients, again, Mount Rainier, can be as involved as they'd like to be. And request multiple projects. So I do want to leave enough time for Luke to really dive deep into how this could work for Mount Rainier. But I do want to set up this idea that we could start with, again, one consulting project this fall that could, again, cascade into other projects focusing in on a similar topic, or again, on another topic of importance to Mount Rainier. And Luke, I turn it back over to you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Kate, for the presentation. Luke, is this part of the presentation, or is it your feedback question that you're going to ask so we have more clarity? Whether
it's a little bit part of the presentation in order to give you guys an idea of what it is we want to do and allow you to ask questions of Kate and or me or anyone else.
Okay.
So, like Kate said, there are a few different projects we could consider applying for. I talked with Kate about just a whole host of things we're looking to do as a city, from strategic vision work to looking at how we can improve housing equity in Mount Rainier, which is a really big, complex problem, to the development along Rhode Island Avenue. And one of the things we talked about that she mentioned is this idea of, one big, large strategic vision covering everything might be too much to kind of bite off. But there could be smaller, more well-defined projects that we could sort of start applying for, and maybe that could cascade into a larger sort of work. And one of the ones that I think is really time-bound, and you guys can think through whatever project we want to apply for, But one project that I think is really good from a timing perspective is the Rhode Island Avenue development, because as I mentioned before, I think the Potts Hall development really opens up a lot of, dominoes to fall for us. Once that's done, what do we do with the Melinda Miles building? There's a developer who owns a building right next door. And there's just a lot of opportunities along that Rhode Island Avenue stretch. And there are a lot of players involved in potential investment, from the developers to the county, and the county has multiple wings that might be interested in this development here. And so I think it would be really helpful to have somebody who could come in from a consultant perspective, give us 40 hours a week to reach out to all those interested parties and figure out what could be a timeline of potential investment and potential development along Rhode Island Avenue. That's a lot of work. And I just think that would be a really cool project for us. So that's something I'm throwing out to the group to see if folks would be interested in that. And then we could apply for that in June if folks are interested in that project, or if there's another project folks wanted to think about and talk through, we could talk about that as well. So throwing that out to the group. Thank you, Mayor.
What's the other project proposal, Luke, since you have the mic?
Other projects are anything you can think of, whether it's like thinking of, how could we get development that brings in housing for low and middle income people, to make sure that it's not just market rate housing, and anything else you want to think of that from a public policy perspective would be good to have consultants coming in doing this work for about a semester.
All right, perfect. I wasn't sure if you had something else in mind as well, but that's fine. All right, Valerie, the floor is yours, followed by Jared.
Yeah, thank you. I think, everything you're saying sounds pretty good. I like the idea of focusing on Route 1 and Rhode Island Avenue, especially in terms of how trail networks can connect to local businesses and things like that. That's something that I'd be interested in seeing, what students could come up with at some point. Question for you. So I know we have options. There's lots of people out there. How well does George Washington University, do you guys work with other universities? I know that's sometimes like a turf thing, but I'm just wondering, in terms of how cities can partner with multiple, and if there was a cross-sector kind of partnership between universities, how that might work.
Absolutely. So I like to say that we play more nicely in the sandbox than some other programs or universities might. So just last week, for example, I was meeting with former colleagues of mine actually at the Smith School of Business. So, one of the things that is pretty cool, and we are considering a project that wouldn't fit into the scope of this Trachtenberg capstone, which would have to be Trachtenberg specific. But we are actually considering partnering on nonprofit implementation, one could say, that allows Trachtenberg to really, take the reins and run on the policy side of the house. And Smith, again, at the University of Maryland Smith School of Business, to take the reins and run from a marketing, financial implementation, side of the house. So one of the things that I do, again, really appreciate about Trachtenberg is that we can get creative and absolutely do like to play, again, nicely in the sandbox. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. Luke and I had talked about the fact that it is possible to also propose more than one project per semester. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for fall, because fall is going to be our smaller cohort since we have less graduates in January. But I will say from a trail perspective, our environmental resource policy students generally take classes in the spring, and I think that they would absolutely love a project like that as well. So if we did want to continue moving forward from an economic perspective, arguably in both the fall and the spring, and I should say an economic development perspective in the fall and the spring, taking on bite-sized projects, again, maybe development of Route 1 in the fall and then affordable housing in the spring. There would be room, especially for our environmental resource policy students, to also look at, again, rail trails are cool, but just trails in general. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Absolutely. So if you have any ideas, I'll put my email in the chat and we can absolutely chat offline.
Thank you so much. Jared?
Yep. And I just want to thank you so much for coming in. Luke, thank you for making the connection. No, very supportive of this. I think it's always great to be able to leverage the talents of folks with a lot of energy and interest in our community. And I know your lens is going to be especially helpful. So I'm fully supportive of this. And thanks again for coming in.
Jared?
Thank you so much, Danielle.
Yes, thank you so much for coming in. This seems to be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of wonderful things you can help us with here in the city. So I'm very interested when you said housing equity. I think Luke said housing equity and helping develop businesses along road. I call it RIA, Rhode Island Avenue. That really piques my attention. So thank you so much for coming in.
And, our students love to take on these issues. They did come to GW for a reason. It is an urban university. We are surrounded by different communities that face these same issues. And so, Luke and I have also had the opportunity to talk a little bit about this, but I know that my supervisor, the big boss, is also really excited about this, understanding that these are the types of issues that our students want to be involved in.
All right, thank you so much. I think that either one of those projects would be great. I know we've been working, when it comes to addressing the county. We've had conversations also with the University of Maryland when it comes to also working in the area, right? But even with the last studies, it shows our bikers are in severe trouble trying to get across and our walkers. So therefore it'd be important to try to connect the CDC to the sea. But it's the big gap between Hyattsville and North Brentwood, and Mount Rainier that is not accounted for, but also the affordability for homes, right? I am definitely more of the software end with your presentation, being a political science major, specifically in public policy. And so I'm not a hard sell when it comes to this, none whatsoever. That's, so, but I will say, I would like for you guys, Luke and Kate, to coordinate also with Mr. Hopkins, our economic development director, because I know there's plans coming across both, because we've been heavily working in the Main Street, both in Rhode Island, but also on 34th Street. Right. So that we're coordinating properly, especially if we're going to be making surveys. So reaching out to the community and stuff like that, or the businesses, because they do a lot of that. So I know for Island, Neighborhood Design Center did a lot of that as well, and things like that, right? So there's a blueprint already of reaching out and people doing that work as well. So I think that if you guys coordinate, we could get the best of both worlds in trying to outreach our residents, our businesses, and be able to maneuver that as much as I can. So for me, the next step definitely would be to have a meeting. I'm happy to join Luke with you and city manager and Mr. Hopkins, so that we have a sense of what's going on currently, so that we have a sense of what we want. But I see definitely if we could find a way for us to do it, the small quorum in the fall, and I know what you mean. That's when it's some of them are getting their feet first wet, and the bigger one in the spring. I think we definitely could start looking into trying to apply and figure out what programs we want to work on, and figure out if this could be a year thing, so that we could take care of both quorums, especially with, you have Memorial Park, you have Potts Hall that's being fixed as well. And we're going to have a couple more Main Street on 34 being touched. So it'll be good to see how the feeding of those streets, not just as people are passing through us sitting on Rhode Island, but also how they feed up 34 as well, part of our business corridor. Okay, so thank you so much, Kate, for being here. If there's anybody in the chat that has a question, please let me know. Name, last name, block, and street number. Is there anything on Facebook, Jared? With a D. All right, thank you so much. And I see nothing on the chat. So, Kate, thank you so much. I look forward to connecting with you and visiting your campus. I haven't had a chance to visit the School of Public Policy. So
absolutely. Come on by and we can have coffee at Western Market right next door. I look forward to it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, take care.
Thanks, everyone. You too.
All right, perfect. Good night. Thank you, Luke, for making that connection. It's really great. I mean, we have so many talented universities. To our kids, we have a lot of talented universities. They don't have to go nowhere, but it's good to connect. The students are great, and to give them a hands-on experience is even more wonderful. All right, so Luke, this is you as well. Spring and Rogers. Oh, so you'll figure out if you want to do this together or separately. Spring and Rogers Park, Councilmember Cheswick will discuss the proposal to begin community-led discussions to redesign and invest in the two parks. So can we address them separately, Luke? Because there's two different bags of parks on it. Go ahead.
Yeah, we can even push off the spring park discussion towards later. I put them together because I'll talk about why I put them together. But we can pause the spring park conversation until maybe the June work session. The Rogers Park discussion I wanted to have here because I wanted to pick up on the momentum that we had from the tree planting event at Rogers Park just a few weeks ago. There's folks interested in building out that park. There have been lots and lots of grants that we've seen, all of us come across the city's table for investments in parks. So there's lots of money to do something here. What I'd like to get done here is I'd like to really mirror the process we used when I took the lead on the food forest. I want to just kind of mirror that process. I want to have us as a city do a call out for just residents who want to get involved in planning for Rogers Park. And I'd love to take the lead on that and just helping them project plan out a design, a project plan out, getting mulch in there. That's one of the more immediate needs I think we have is to get mulch around all the trees that are in there to kind of keep the invasives at bay until we get a well-defined plan together and then get some funding around it. So really love to take that on and happy to have anybody who'd want to I know that's in Ward 2. So if Jarrett or Valerie would want to be on that and just kind of see how we do that process and then see if we could if that works for Rogers Park, we know it worked for the food forest, we can then copy that same sort of project planning style and use it for Spring Park. I know Danielle's new, so if she was interested in coming on board with that, watching how we work and then being able to take that and apply that and have her in a leadership role in Spring Park. I know that's really close to where she lives and she's interested in that as well. So just throwing that out to the group and maybe we'll start with Rogers Park and Spring Park can be a later thing once we kind of get through Rogers Park. And just for residents to know, one of the hard things with Spring Park is our public works director has been doing a really good job trying to get somebody to look at that spring to see what could be done in revitalizing that. And she just has gotten sort of roadblock after roadblock after roadblock and talking to people. So I think we have more time on that piece. So I think that could wait until maybe a discussion later. But so I wanted to get the mayor and council's interest and just and permission to kind of take the lead on setting something up to get something done with Rogers Park. Thanks.
Okay. So that was a lot. So basically at this point, your proposal is start with Rogers Park to have a community-led effort. It doesn't have to be 100% mirroring food forest, but you're talking about the community involvement part of it, correct?
That's right.
So I will say that I will separate them. I think it's best for you to do Rogers Park separately. And the other thing is I do think because they are both in Ward 2, to get the buy-in from the council members in Ward 2, whether they're going to take the lead with you. So that way we're also, we also have them involved in their work. Okay, so council, I'm going to open up the floor to you guys. I'm going to start with Ward 2 because both of these parks are in your ward. At this point, I need to know, one, do you feel to separate them? If you guys agree to start in Rogers Park, and if any of you two want to jump on it, or you guys can have the discussion later and then join, that's fine. You guys don't have to decide tonight, but do have the conversation on what you guys wish to do. And a little bit about Rogers Park. We just planted over 20 trees from the tree commission, right? In Rogers Park. So work kind of happens there, but yeah, you're right. There's a lot of other things that are needed. All right. I'm going to go with Valerie this time and then Jared. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, I think, I mean, the only park we've left out that I can see right now is the gazebo, but I'll leave that alone for right now. But I think separating them, I think, is probably an okay thing. I think we do need to kind of figure out what we're doing with both parks at this point at some point soon. But Rogers Park, I think there is momentum to work on that. So I'm happy to participate in that. Or if Jarrett wants to work on that, he can, whatever is easier, I defer to him. But I think it's worth, I think there's a lot of grant funding right now. I think we certainly should do a big scan of all the environmental grants because there's a lot of funding out there that we can go after to help with these parks as well. So I think this is the right time to think about that. So thank you for bringing it up, and I'll go from there to Jarrett. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Jarrett?
Yep. No, I agree with that approach, Luke. I think, Rogers Park, is a little bit of a simpler plot for not having the historical dynamic. And I know Rocio and Mr. Kamali and others have been working really hard at trying to find a pathway to help us kind of figure out some of the next steps there. So I am really excited that you're coming up with this plan. You brought this forward to, activate these help activate these two spaces. I mean, these are, we have not a ton of public space in the city. We have, I think everyone remembers we're the densest city in the state of Maryland. And particularly if you live at the northern end of the city, if you're in our apartments, there's very little public space, and especially on the other side, once you cross Queen Chapel and Unincorporated County, there's just really not that much. So, helping create more spaces where we can bring folks from across the city together, wherever they live, on the north side, south side, in houses and apartments and duplexes, into our spaces together is something I'm 100% in favor of. And, Valerie and I think we're happy to work, happy to, take Rogers on. I'm happy to, we can both step in, but I'm really excited that, and I think you're right, you're correct. That's appropriate time, with the mountain of resources that kind of came forward since the infrastructure bill passed and the Inflation Reduction Act passed and EPA and other state agencies, and we had an administration switch, and there's a lot more resources than there used to be to help us kind of bring the resources on that we need to tackle activating these public spaces for all members of the community. Thanks.
All right, perfect. So Valerie, Jared, decide upon each other. This has to be in this meeting. Who's going to work on what with Luke on it, right? So that way you guys can figure out it is Ward 2. So I want to make sure I'm respectful of you guys' space. The beautiful thing about me, I have no territory. I'm overall. But saying that, I'm happy to step back and let you guys lead and work as needed. Danielle?
Yes. Luke, I'm really excited when I saw this on the agenda. I got all excited when I saw Spring Park there. So, and it's so funny. The other day, for the last couple of days since you guys did the tree planting, I've had to explain who or where Rogers Park is to some people, and that is also AKA Goats Park or the Goat Park. So I'm really excited to see some energy in wanting to get something done there and develop it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do there. And just so you guys know, in Ward 2, yeah, Spring Park is in Ward 2, but it's also a special place for those of us here on the 3200 block of Shepherd. So I would always be willing to jump in and do any assistance when you guys pick that up too. So thank you so much.
Okay, so far it sounds very much, just to put things into context, it sounds very much that we're in agreement with Rogers Park, so for you guys to start working on it, which is good. It'll give you guys a project during the summer to get things done. So figure out, and I guess Danielle and you guys need support, will be around. Okay, so we do have a question at the chat from Hillary Vargas, 3300 block of Shepherd. Hillary, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, Luke, for raising these issues. And we're excited to dig into kind of next steps on Spring Park when it comes to that. And Danielle, welcome you into that conversation and excited to have you participating in that as well. Luke, you mentioned that there have been some roadblocks that Rocio has faced with the spring, and recognizing that that's something that would be discussed in greater detail in June, but wondering if you'd be willing to share a bit of an update here as well. Thank you.
Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, it was it's kind of comedic if it wasn't so sad. So she had like Mr. Kamali may know exactly their titles. It was either hydrologist or somebody who works on like preservation on springs of this area. There was like two people. These aren't like common jobs. So one of them I think was coming from far away, supposed to meet at Spring Park one day, didn't show up, like ghosted Rocio, and then never responded to her calls. And then another person just like totally ignored her. And I think there was like a more recent one that also like backed out and didn't come. Yeah. I forget what happened there. And I want to say they were all either hydrologists or working in restoration. But Mr. Kamali, if you know exactly what their titles were, I can tell you that Rocio is still working with the Maryland Historic Trust Society to see like what are potential grants that could be used for this site to do like engineering or development. So she's not like stopped doing things. It's just been very hard to find somebody who can look at this thing and figure out what can be done with it. It's not a common job, I guess. But I turn over to Mr. Kamali if he has any more comments.
Mr. Kamali, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. As Luke mentioned, we've been trying for almost 8-9 months, and because of the size of the project, it's a small project, so no one is willing to come and look at it. But I'll be glad to provide the name of the companies, because there have been more than 2 or 3 companies that they decided to come at the last minute. They just cancel the site visit. Unfortunately, we have not been able to get anybody to come and look at it. So I can share the information, have Rocio to send you the information tomorrow, if it's okay with you, because I don't recall the name right now.
That's fine.
That should be fine, Mr. Kamali. The other thing is like you guys have to consider when it comes to Spring Park, was Hiller that was information to see if you guys were going to restore it. But if that is not something that could be done, the other suggestion that was put public from various community meetings was to have a plaque where the spring is at, to so that way you acknowledge the historical context of what it looks like. So that might be another option, but to reconsider as you guys are having those conversations, because if it cannot be restored to either A, functional for you to drink water, or just restore for it to appear it's there, or for it to be there, that might be a roadblock that you guys might have to decide whether or not you guys want to continue with that or not. But I think that at this moment, we have consensus to move on with Rogers Park. And then from there on, they will bring Spring Park to a different conversation once Rocio gets any more feedback. But I think that right now, let's tackle one park at a time. And it sounds like we're tackling Memorial Park, which is a massive, massive project. And then we have Rogers Park. So if we could just tackle Rogers Park at least for the beginning steps. And then once we get more information from Rocio or figure out. But I would suggest let's not overdo it with too many stuff at once, because we have a lot of stuff going on right now. And our team is technically it's a very small team. So I will recommend to the group focus on Rogers Park as we're finding as Rocio tries to gather more information and then move forward. If we have to move this until September, then we'll move the Spring Park into that, but then we could work on Rogers Park. How are we? Thumbs up on that? Good. Jared? Okay, so let's reach the agreement. Let's move on to the next item. Okay. All right, presentation, discussion, and WMAT's recent release bus redesign for their entire system. Councilmember Stoffes will discuss on MTA's recent release bus redesign for their entire system. And to point out, most of our city residents do take the bus system. Oh, there was a comment on the chat. It said, John, is being tabled until probably September at this point. The question was, very glad there will be a revisiting how to make Spring Park community resource. Will the community consultation Spring Park proceed the application for grants to do specific projects? Right now, there is being tabled, and basically what was decided is that we're going to focus on Rogers Park, and then they're going to start the whole. In September, we'll revisit where we are with Spring Park. And then we'll start the community conversations and proposals of grants and stuff like that will come forward. But from my understanding, Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, they're trying to get the community conversations before the grants and present the grants and the deadlines to try to meet. Okay. All right. So Jared, my apology, I didn't see the question, but go on. Jared, the floor is yours.
Oh. Okay. Hey, folks. So I just wanted to take a short amount of time to talk about WMATA, or what everyone in the region calls Metro, their Better Bus initiative, what they're proposing for the region, and talk through what that means for Mount Rainier, and then also get a sense of the mayor and council on the feedback we want to provide to WMATA or Metro on their proposal. So short version of this is Metro is, and I'll just call it Metro, that's a colloquial name for it. So Metro is looking at a comprehensive overhaul of their entire bus network. And so they have a broader initiative called Better Bus, which is the everything in the universe relating to the bus network, electrification, new stations, new bus routes, and so forth. And as part of that, they've launched a system-wide network redesign to look at the system holistically, given how the region's changed over time, improve access to transit, promote equity, and create a simpler network. I don't know if folks ever dove in on this, but there's over 200 bus routes currently run by Metro, with another 250 with 7 other regional providers. In our region, that includes Prince George's County, the system that's run by the county. So they're looking at an opportunity to kind of make this a little bit simpler and straightforward. So wanted to flag for anyone watching or watching this right now, and we've sent out information on the listserv and other places as well. Metro has a website that you can use to check out suggested changes to the network. So it actually have a really cool tool that lets you place your location, put a destination, and then see how that relates to the current network and how that relates to the future network. And there's also the website also includes maps of the current system, the new proposed systems, new lines, and what each potential new route or route redesign would look like. All right, so broader direction in this is it's really good stuff, and I'll get to caveat a little bit later. But so it's going to create some broad changes to WMATA bus service. It's going to create a high frequency service across the region. I've taken a quick sort of top level snapshot at on the left at the high frequency. That means like 12, 15 minutes or less service that would be operated across the region. In this case in Maryland. We are also the beneficiary of being next to DC. DC also has very frequent transit service, and we continue to have so going forward. One great thing, especially for a lot of folks in the city, and I just want to frame a note on this, is reminding folks that over a third of the houses in the northern parts of the city are actually carless. There are no car households. There is generally no access to a vehicle to get around. For residents of the city, about changed a little bit pre-COVID, post-COVID, but about 40% of people got to work on public transportation. And, we're a very working class city, very renter heavy, very low, moderate income. Transit, and especially bus transit, is really critical. This proposal would also add all night service into the mix as well, and especially important from Mount Rainier into DC, and then connecting to other kind of major routes and major hubs. It's a big improvement over right now. All those lines end at, a lot of them end at 1, sometimes 12, 12:30, 1 a.m., or even before. All right. Current current status of where we are on bus transit access, we have some sort of frequent lines, 83, the T14, the T18. Those are routes that run up Rhode Island Avenue and then continue on Baltimore Avenue or continue over on Annapolis Road 450. And then we have some low or moderate frequency bus lines as well. So, the other one, B2, that's a line that goes basically down Bladensburg Road from our central terminal at 34th Street all the way down to basically Capitol Hill, crossing the river and terminating at the Anacostia Metro Station on the Green Line. We have several low, moderate frequency lines, the F1, F2, those go from 34th and then kind of wind their way up to the West Hyattsville station. Those are really infrequent, at best around every 30 minutes, if not less frequent. The G8 bus, which comes up, stops at basically Kaywood, goes down Eastern Avenue, and then goes into downtown DC. And then Route 17, which is actually run by Prince George's County, not Metro, which goes up north and south on Route 1 from Mount Rainier up to IKEA. All right, so these proposed changes are actually pretty good. The B2 actually continues to run as frequently as it does every 15 minutes. Would be renamed to DC 114 and would extend to West Hyattsville Metro. So every single time a bus comes up to our downtown corridor, it would continue onwards all the way to West Hyattsville Metro on the green. Same thing with the G8, which is now DC 110 instead of ending by Kaywood Gardens, the apartments at the north end, right by Varnum, Eastern and Varnum. It would continue all the way up on Queens Chapel Road and also connect to West Hyattsville. So these are two long kind of critical routes in terms of their length and their connectivity. And they've always been missing this like last half mile, and they would go all the way to connect to West Hyattsville. So great for folks trying to traverse our city, connect to the metro. Also great for folks in the city, who would be able to get to the metro much easier than they currently are able today. We don't have a lot of bus service that goes directly there, even though it's less than a mile from most of the city. One thing I wanted to mention, and this is unclear, and this is something I want to get consensus from the council, mayor and council on, use of the Mount Rainier bus terminal. So currently, and I'll go into this later, in a later slide, we have some buses stop on Rhode Island Avenue, mostly the 80s and the T's. The 82 F1, F2, and Route 17 actually stop at the old streetcar turnaround and then kind of sit there before turning around or continuing onwards. And one thing Luke's and others folks have mentioned is that this has been, we have WMATA basically has the rights to that space right now. And it would be great to reclaim some or all of it for a bus, for a downtown, a civic green public space, especially if WMATA Metro no longer needs it. Next slide. So just very quickly go through the B2 replacement. It basically is the same as it is currently, goes north, we'll go up 38th, curves over on Hamilton to Mount Rainier. So increases frequency, it's 15 minutes now, run at least every 12 and run almost 24 hours. As you can see below, there's only a 2-hour gap from 2:30 to 4:30 a.m. Next slide. G8, same thing. This would again extend from Eastern and Varnum, where Kaywood Gardens is, all the way to West Hyattsville. Also great, it's every 30 minutes now. It would improve to at least every 20 and run again, as you can see, almost about 20 hours a day, almost just a small gap in the early morning. One thing I want to go back, sorry. One thing I wanted to note is that they're proposing to terminate it at, Brooklyn and then Rhode Island Avenue instead of continuing downtown like it currently does. Maryland 146, T14, T18, it goes on Rhode Island Avenue. This is pretty much the same as it was before. This is a great core line, runs from Rhode Island, New Carrollton, connects a lot of communities, including ours to DC and the Metro. 249, this is 80s bus service that runs up Rhode Island Avenue through Mount Rainier all the way up north. This one is also pretty similar. Would just continue running basically all the way up to Greenbelt Road at the northern end of College Park. And then MD 250, this is also very similar. It's very similar to 249. They would run it the same way. They just would cut over the northern end ends a little bit earlier. All right. So what's less ideal? So I'm going to caveat this proposed network. This sounds great, right? If you're a bus rider, you're a transit rider, or you just care about access to the city, this proposed network is actually 35% more expensive than the current metro network. So I'll get to like why we need to provide input going forward, but there's some few changes that aren't service improvements, at least for us. So the F1 and F2 actually get removed. These typically ran through downtown Mount Rainier, and what's happening is that service is actually kind of running on the sides of the city now at 38th and Brentwood, and then Eastern Avenue. So the G8 replacement kind of come up one side, and the B2 replacement would continue up 38th on the other side, eastern side of the city. Some lines end up terminating at rail stations like the G8, the 210 terminates at Brookland instead of continuing downtown. A number of folks have asked about the G9 bus. That was an express from Mount Rainier to basically downtown. That was discontinued by WMATA, Metro a couple years ago. It's not back. From everything I've heard and from talking to Metro staff is that there's not a likelihood that this one will come back because the ridership really wasn't that great. And they can run a lot more frequent service by running service to rail stations. So, one thing this network does is improves a lot of bus service frequency by at not as high of a cost by connecting bus service to Metro. So a lot of routes, instead of connecting to a core like a rail line, often would continue past. And what that meant is that Metro was running a lot of extra bus service just because, and it was often duplicating other service that existed. You know, if you're running a bus line parallel to another bus line a couple blocks away, parallel to a rail line, and none of them are full, there are often some ways to better optimize, where you're taking people and to where. So, I'm supportive on that point. Or I'm understanding of that. Folks don't like transfers. I get that. But if Metro both creates a lot more connectivity to rail, moderates the impacts on rail riders, sorry, I'm blanking here. If a lot of the cost impacts on transferring to rail, if Metro's talked about lowering the fares on rail, and making sure that the frequencies are high. So, if you have a transfer, it's more efficient in the system. They can run more bus service if they transfer to rail instead of running multiple buses that parallel the rail lines. But all the service has to continue to be frequent for that to work. So next slide. Okay, what's the barrier to this changes? Mentioned this earlier, cost. It's proposed plans up to 35% more. It's a contribution by the counties and states, as Maryland, Virginia, DC, and also the federal government provides a special contribution to Metro. Just for context, anyone listening, we do not directly fund WMATA Metro. We benefit from the service changes. So this is kind of we're putting in what's important to us. Without having there's no fiscal impact on the city by having to donate more. So as full funding is not likely to cover 100% of the proposed network, providing feedback to Metro is going to be really critical to ensuring that our improvements remain in the final plan. So, if we come out, if this thing costs a third more and we don't say, hey, more service is important to us, Metro is probably going to look and say, hey, maybe this is not a priority to maintain or improve the level of service here. And that's why I think it's important. So I just wanted to get kind of consensus and the sort of the sense of the council. My suggestion, sorry, folks, I got proposed, sorry, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. I got a delayed flight and I'm stuck in the airport. So I wanted to write a letter from Mayor, get a sense of the council and Mayor on a letter to Metro and the Metro Board. Talking about broad support of these changes and service increases. 2, kind of talking about some of the service impacts that have strong equity benefits. So extending West Hyattsville Metro on the G8, there's the successor line, and then the B2, the successor line to that, will provide incredible improvements in access for riders in in some of our least resourced communities, especially in the apartment buildings. Again, you're in those buildings, you still got a half-mile walk or longer to the West Hyattsville Metro. This will create a lot of access for Kaywood Gardens, Queens Manor, and some of the other apartment complexes in town. Also want to just speak to the importance of, if you're forcing people to transfer to rail, the rail fares need to be cheaper. We need to not make it more impactful than it would be otherwise. And then, if we're asking people to transfer, Metro needs to keep the services high. It's not, don't promise you're going to run service every 10 minutes and then in actuality run it every 20. So that is in sum what I got. I would love to hear, I guess, any questions, if it were, or any feedback. Thanks.
All right. So Jared, the proposal is to write a letter highlighting the great things that we like about it and things we do not like or support, correct? More or less?
That is correct. Yep.
All right, perfect. I'm going to go with word one. Danielle, Luke.
Jared, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. I had a chance, as you know, to look through the slides earlier, and I asked you some questions. Number one was my concern was if we were going to lose the bus terminal or the turnaround up at City Hall. I know that is a historical spot, so I don't know if that is going to be a concern for people in the community. I do like your idea of reclaiming it and turning it into a green area for the community. But if you could answer a little bit more about the fact why we wouldn't be using that anymore, and where they would stop, if they would stop at all there on Rhode Island.
Yeah, so the buses currently stop on so there's two places buses stop. One of them is along Rhode Island Avenue, like roughly right in front of the library, and that's about half the buses. The remainder are the F1, F2, which stop through on the way, and the successor lines would just get routed on the Rhode Island. The B2, same thing. Instead of it normally historically would turn around at Mount Rainier, and now it's going to continue going through. So it's also going to continue on Rhode Island. And then the only one that's just sort of an outstanding question is Prince George's County is the bus, which if everything else is now sort of looping and turning around on Rhode Island, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be possible. Metro has basically access to our bus bays. It's in the center of our community. So we won't be getting rid of transit access. It's simply that the buses would be sitting on Rhode Island Avenue where there is already space and egress place for people to get on and off. Secondly, we wouldn't have two separate bus boarding locations, which we do right now, which doesn't really make a lot of sense either. Like half these buses are here and half these buses are here. How do you know where? And third, if we could reclaim, there's 3 bays, if we could reclaim 1, 2, or possibly even all 3 for public space downtown, that allows us to take the space back, keep the service, and continue to have, and create more space in our downtown for, which it is for our community. So I think that's like a win-win-win-win all around.
I agree. Thank you very much for clearing that up.
Thank you, Jared. Luke.
Yeah, thank you, Jared, for this. I really love the idea of taking back that space, from the bus terminal. I just think that would be excellent, and we'd have to really think long and hard what we want to use that for to make sure it would be good use for our downtown area, but just really appreciate your work here, and love that idea. Thank you.
So as a point of I need you guys to give me the thumbs up. Danielle, Luke, are we in support of writing the letter? Because you said everything except for that, because he needs to get on the letter right away because the window's closing. Thank you. Valerie, you're next.
I think I'm generally in support. I think it's good that they would continue service on Eastern Varnum and then down Arundel. Queens Chapel. And I think one thing to add to your letter, if you can, is that if they're going to run buses on Queens Chapel to West Hyattsville, that bus shelters would be ideal and appropriate there. I also think one of the reasons the G9 bus, there were reasons it didn't come across, but it didn't go to the terminal, which made it hard for people to pick up the bus. So, you know, if they're entertaining bringing that express bus back down to downtown DC, bring it to the terminal or bring it to a stop. I also wonder, and this is, I know it's a different system, it's the Prince George's County system, but you know, if they're going to extend the 249, 250 buses, make sure they work with the bus or Route 17 so that they intersperse service, because right now, or currently in the last 10 years I've been here, all the buses run at the same time, which then you have 3 bus lines that are empty. So I definitely think it's good to address those things in your letter if you can as well. But thank you for bringing this up. And I will definitely love going to betterbus.wmata.com to provide more insight for my own personal views.
Yep. And for anyone watching, please, you know, obviously we're getting the sense of the city, that voice is important. Any residents, please, anyone watching, please go on and you're able to offer input yourselves. Metro does have workshops that you can go to as well. You know, we're weighing in specifically on things that affect our city, access for folks to and from our city. You know, you may want to weigh in on other parts of the system if you work in Virginia, DC, other things that affect, that's important as well. So thank you for that. And thank you for everyone for your thoughts. And I will put together a letter for the city.
Gee, thanks for waiting for my comment. I appreciate it.
Oops, sorry. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Well, obviously, you know how this conversation started, so don't worry about it. No, definitely in agreement. Share the draft, and I'll say share the draft with. If you could share the draft with Valerie to make sure the other input is on, and then I'll take the final look at it if you want before I sign it. Then we could get the letter out as soon as possible. I think that sometimes, you know, we do have $500,000 and $1 million homes, but what we don't realize is 77% of the people in our city are renters. But not only that, you do have a lot of people that do have homes, do make good income, and still are also making sure that they care for the environment. So they bike and walk and use commuter transit as well. So this is part of like working on those efforts. Obviously, if you're going to throw in there, you know, like we would love to be the first pilot for like, you know, green buses. I'm not going to cry. I'm actually will be very happy because we do have a lot of buses stopping in the city, which makes us very accessible to the rest of the, you know, DC and other parts of Maryland. But that definitely would be something I would love to have, you know, as they're making every effort to get the right infrastructure for it. But that'll be my 2 cents. And if we could get this letter out, I know you have the deadline for it. The sooner we can get it so we could sign it off. I know all of us are, well, I know I'm ridiculous busy with my Rainier Day. It's crazy right now. And so is the rest of the team. But if we get the letter out before deadline so we could submit it, it'll be perfect. Okay. All right. So Valerie, you're good taking a look at it and adding anything else that you mentioned on it as well. And then I'll support it. Then just send it to me now. I'll sign it off and we will make sure it gets there by hand, deliver, mail, and snail mail, and everything else you need. Okay. All right. So if anybody wants to speak on this item, we are asking to please put your name, your last name, your block and street number. That is part of our agenda items for us to do, because then I start reading a bunch of people's messages and becomes counterproductive. Okay. So can you guys go ahead and please do that? And also because I'm trying to avoid having to get Zoom bomb, and we definitely need to know who you are that making the comments. Okay. All right. I see one. Charnette, I see a comment from you. Can you want to speak on the comment regarding the buses? And you have to provide your name and last name, block and street number.
Good evening. It's Charnette Robinson, 3500 block of Perry Street. And Jared, thank you for providing that information and that PowerPoint presentation. That issue has come up before about the bus turnaround. So I just want to say that I'm happy to see that it is being addressed. So thank you for doing that presentation.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Then we have another comment from, who else made a comment? Sarah, you did name your block and street number, I believe, earlier. Do you want to read the comments, Sarah? Any comments or no? Sarah? I guess as I know the comments in the chat, basically I missed a J9. Robin, you want to read your comment? Or you want to state your comment?
I'm not sure if Jared addressed the B2. Is that going to be terminated at a station, or what was the update on that?
Yeah, just a reminder on this again. And I did cover it a little bit ago, but just for folks listening, the B2, instead of going from basically Anacostia Metro, Capitol Hill, up Bladensburg Road and terminating at Mount Rainier Terminal, it would continue, every single one would continue on to West Hyattsville through Mount Rainier, up 38th Street and over on Hamilton. And it would run every 12 minutes instead of every 15. So actually create a lot more connectivity for us, and the frequency would go up. So good news, at least in their proposal.
So Robert Bliss, name, block number and street.
Oh, thank you. 3800, a block of 30th Street.
Thank you so much, Robin. All right.
And I will miss the G9 too.
I know, but I do agree with Valerie. I wish they would have had the turnaround so people even know it was there. I mean, they set it up for failure since the beginning. All right, but so Jared added to the letter. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And I think I covered anything on Facebook because time is up. So we will need to add more time, if anything. Nothing? All right. Nothing, Jared? All right, perfect. Moving on to item number 7, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month Proclamation. I will read the Proclamation, Asian American, Native American. I don't know if I might read, but put it on the screen. It's a long proclamation. And just to give it a bit of context, Councilmember Jared Sophis did wrote a resolution last year, and we voted collectively proclaiming the month of May, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the city of Mount Rainier. But because it's customary for us to do a proclamation as well, we are doing both. But right, Jared? You know, Jared was eager to read this proclamation. So you want to read it, Jared, and you'll stop on the last paragraph? Yep. And thank you so much, folks. As one of the only handful of about 5 Asian American council members in the state of Maryland. It's very important. So, City of Mount Rainier, Proclamation and Recognition and Celebration of May is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas the City of Mount Rainier is proud to honor the history and contributions of the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander memories in our community throughout Maryland and our nation. Whereas the month of May is celebrated nationwide as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month to recognize contributions and influences of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders here in the U.S. Whereas the month of May was selected for the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month because the first Japanese immigrants arrived in the U.S. on May 7th, 1843, and the first transcontinental railroad was completed on May 10th, 1869, with substantial contributions from Chinese immigrants. Whereas the Federal Asian Pacific American Council has named this year's theme for API Heritage Month as Advancing Leaders Through Collaboration. This theme is a continuation of Advancing Leaders theme series that began in 2021 will continue until 2024 to highlight FAPC's efforts in advancing leaders in federal government and local government across the country. Whereas during Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we elevate the achievements and contributions made to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development. Whereas the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community has played a key role in the advancement of the city and the world in multiple fields of study, including but not limited to the arts, culture, science, math, politics, history, business, music, sports, medicine, economic development, education, agriculture, literature, dance, high technology, and human-centered rights, including LGBTQAI+ rights. There's no field that the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community has not positively impacted and advanced. Whereas the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community is an inherently diverse population composed of more than 45 distinct ethnicities and more than 100 language dialects, whereas there are approximately 23.5 million residents of the U.S. who identify as Asian, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander, making up nearly 7% of the total population of the U.S., whereas there are approximately 300,000 residents of Maryland that identify as Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islanders, making up 6% of the total population of Maryland, whereas there are approximately 39,000 residents of Prince George's County that identify as Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, making up 4% of the total population of Prince George's County. And whereas there are approximately 200 residents in the city of Mount Rainier, Maryland, that identify as Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, making up approximately 2% of the total population of Mount Rainier, Maryland.
And whereas Maryland and Prince George's County have led in Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander history with the election of Kenjiro Matsudaira as the mayor of Edmonston in 1927. Mayor Matsudaira became the first Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander elected mayor not only in Prince George's County and Maryland, but in the mainland United States. Whereas there remains much to be done to ensure that Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community have access to resources and a voice in the government of the United States and continue to advance in the political landscape of the United States. Whereas since January 2020, the increased use of anti-Asian terminology and rhetoric related to the 2019 novel coronavirus, COVID-19, has perpetuated anti-Asian stigma and resulted in a dramatic increase in reports of hate crimes and incidents against individuals of Asian descent. Whereas the city of Mount Rainier stands in unity with the Asian community and denounces any anti-Asian hate attacks. Whereas the city of Mount Rainier commits to doing everything in our power to demand that we seek greater understanding, implement changes to ensure that racism and unjust treatment of any person is not tolerated in any way, form, or within the city of Mount Rainier. Whereas all residents deserve to be treated with dignity, respect, compassion, and justice, regardless of race, religion, color, national origin, sex, age, income, economic status, language, political affiliation, military status, sexual orientation, or physical, mental, or sensory ability. And whereas the city of Mount Rainier, its elected officials, and its residents are committed to inclusion and advancing equity and justice for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community, and people of all races, national origins, and ethnicity. Whereas Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander history is U.S. history and should be taught to students in elementary along with ethics studies. And whereas Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Month is a time for all citizens to Mount Rainier to remember contributions and legacy and those who have built our nation, fought against prejudice to secure lives of dignity and opportunity for all of our citizens, advanced the cause of civil rights for all Americans, and strengthened our family communities. Now, therefore be resolved, Selena Benitez.
I'll read the last part.
Okay, go for it. Yes, go for it.
Very awkward last part. It's okay. Now, therefore, be a resolved, I, Senator Benitez, Mayor of the City of Mount Rainier, do hereby proclaim May as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the City of Mount Rainier. Every year from today on, the City of Mount Rainier will celebrate May as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month and urge all of its citizens to celebrate the Asian American, Pacific Islander community heritage, history, and Native culture, and continue our efforts year-round to create a world that is more just, peaceful, equitable, and prosperous for all, and stand up for justice, voting rights, against oppression, protect human rights. So you see my pretty signature. I also want to give a big shout out to Vice Mayor Amy from Cheverly. Also, we have but the other vice mayor, but the vice mayor from Commer Manor, Melinda. We also have I always messed up on her. I said delegate Chris, delegate Chris, and the newly elected council member for New Carlton, David. Who is Jared was the lonesome Asian council member male in the group of our great wonderful council member vice mayors, but we have added one more council member as part of the AAPI municipal league caucus, so we're very happy, and the other caucuses were very happy celebrating as well. We also have our county council member Juanica Fisher, who is also Asian American descent as well. So in Prince George's County, I'd like to say we're highly represented with great people making sure that that as well are representing the community. And we're looking forward to continue learning and building together. So thank you so much, Jared, for reading this long, but also for the resolution you've written. And for the great work you do, not just in the city, but through the state to make sure that representation happens. So I want to make sure I give you big kudos, Jared, as well, because you do a lot of work. You were recently just in the White House for one of their seminars, as well as other elected officials. So thank you for that and for making sure you outreach. And, we have a good team working on in the state collectively. All right. Thank you guys so much. And there you go. Any comments? Sharnette, if you're going to make a comment, can you please make sure you put your name in block every single time? So that was for the record. And I go ahead and read your own remarks.
Okay, so my remark is, thank you, Jared. And I wish that a resolution like this was done many years ago for African Americans who were arrested 95% more than any other people in Mount Rainier. When a juvenile is arrested, they're no longer eligible for student loans, which greatly decreases their opportunity to apply and receive federal grants and loans. And I don't think that a lot of times that is considered when some of the arrests are made. I know that this, and I'm very proud of Mount Rainier in that the arrest rate has dramatically dropped over the years. But I still think there needs to be a resolution on behalf of Black people for the history of Mount Rainier. And I really hope that we can get to a point of working on that. I think that things may have happened years ago, but they are not forgotten.
Thank you, Sharnette.
Yeah.
Just a point of information, there is a resolution for the African American community that was read, and it's basically almost a mirror image of this one. Same thing for the Latino, same thing for the LGBTQ. I think we hit every single demographic so far, but every year we're adding at least one or two. But an African American resolution was written, and also for LGBTQ as well. And those are reading in their perspective months as well.
Okay.
All right. So, Council, any words regarding the proclamation? We're good. Where are you? Good. Thank you, Valerie. Luke? Good. Danielle? All right. Perfect. So, Jared, thank you so much for the long read and also for the resolution. I'm glad that the resolution was presented and voted for Mayor and Council unanimously last year. So it's great to know it's in the books, and also that every year we read the proclamation to make sure we bring awareness to our residents there in the city of Mount Rainier. All right, thank you so much. I know I spend a lot of hours writing this resolution. It was a lot of work, but it's always fun to acknowledge the various groups. All right, moving on to item number 8.
Do I just go ahead and start talking?
Hold on, let me read it. I just let me at least read the introduction before anybody else makes a comment. Discussion of proposal of adding line item FY24 budget for African American history. Councilmember Daniel Carr will ask for the creation of a line item of the city budget that will be fund outreach education events during African American History Month each year. Go ahead, Danielle.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Most people know the history of Mount Rainier and its dark past as a sundown town. This is common knowledge and is still referred back to till this day. In fact, I read where someone online referred to Mount Rainier as its sundown history just last week. Then when you look at the makeup of the city council, you can see why the African American community might feel underrepresented and who can blame them. Just because there are no members of the current council that look like them doesn't mean that they are not represented in Canterville, which is why I'm putting forth a recommendation to create a line item in the city budget that will fund African American heritage programming here in the city. Considering the deep history of the African American community has in the city of Mount Rainier and Prince George's County in general, I feel that it would behoove the city to recognize the advancements made in our state, county, and city by establishing a line item that will be used to create programming that will enhance outreach, education, engagement within the community as a whole, while also funding events to help celebrate African American Heritage Month each year. We are a very diverse community and we brag about it all the time, but looking over the budget, it does not reflect that diversity. Let us correct it by creating this line item. Thank you.
Mr. Kamali, can you do me a favor, or Ron Wilson? Can you please read what line item is African American events on?
Yeah,
for the budget?
We could do that.
Put a line item in the budget for FY24.
Sure.
Just as a point of clarity, so there is a line item already established. So Neil, if you're asked is to create a line item, it's already been created in the budget. The discussion, the budget was also had that we are gonna be funding Gateway CDC with a grant, and we wanna see one of the asks is gonna be for them to work and some of the funding be used for an event as well. So I'm not sure if you missed the discussion. But if your ask is for it to be a line item, yes, there is already a line item on it, and there's a path forward to collaborate with other people and making sure that that an event is put together, at least one, if not more.
My understanding from what I saw, hold on, let me put my, I can see the computer glasses on. The line item that I saw in the budget was a $1,000 line item for Juneteenth. That does not cover African American Heritage Month. Those are two completely separate things. African American Heritage Month, as you know, is February of each year, and Juneteenth is one day, June 19th, once a year. So my proposal is to add a line item to the budget for programming in the month of February, which is African American Heritage Month.
So I'll leave the mic open to the counselors, but like I mentioned, we did discuss working in collaboration with Gateway CDC, since they have a group of very diverse people then part of their team. We are funding them $50,000, $100,000 total in the year. So either way, so I'll let council figure out what is it. I know you're shaking your head, but right now I'm giving you a point of information. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. Okay. So council, go ahead. The floor is yours. I'm going to start with you, Luke.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Danielle, for bringing this up. I'm totally open to funding things for events for African American History Month. I think it'd be really important to kind of take a look at all the line items we have around this area, around all the groups that we'd like to celebrate here in Mount Rainier, and just make sure there's, equity here, which I think, Danielle, that's what you're getting at, is to make sure we have equity and support for all these great things. And so I think so I support it, and I'm willing to consider like what a budget line item would look like. And Danielle, I think what would be really helpful to me is maybe work with Kamali to have maybe just either put it in an email to us or on just one slide or something, just like what we are funding right now in all those categories, and what your proposal would be in there. So I just I'm a visual learner, so just seeing that I think on a page would be really helpful for me. But really appreciate you bringing this up, and I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Jared?
Yeah, I'll just echo Luke's thoughts. I mean, I'm broadly supportive of what you brought forward. I think, there's the history and the experiences of African Americans in this community historically have been, particularly challenged. Folks that have been in the city a while know some of the things former Mayor Miles endured when she first got on the council. And, really, important to know that history is not lost. Know that the things that happened and, that did happen, and some things that continue to happen are, we continue to highlight and raise the voices of all folks in our community. So yeah, I'm broadly supportive of that approach as well. I would just kind of one reflection is as we kind of look towards elevating voices, I'd like to put a pin on this as it sort of relates to I think what we're doing, what you're proposing is very important. I think a lot about the lens of my experience as well. And would like to, not leave other ethnic groups, potentially out of thinking or programming as we do this. I was reflecting a lot on this. I think I've shared with some folks on council that someone actually referred to me in a racial epithet on election day in this city with a word that I will not repeat. It was really disappointing, and it's actually not the first time it's happened here. So I think we have a lot of work to do in highlighting some of the experiences of in history and voices in this community. I just want to make sure we continue to elevate, all voices across this community as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Valerie?
Danielle, thank you for bringing this up. Generally, I would be very supportive of it. I'd like to see a little bit more information about kind of how much you're thinking. I think we should work on this as we go into the new fiscal year, which starts in July. And I think that's a good time to really start to work on that. I'd also suggest, I know I see the comments here, but Gateway CDC is, it works throughout 3 different communities in the area. So I don't know that they're like the perfect vehicle for any kind of thing within the city of Mount Rainier that I think is a little bit separate sometimes, but I think it is a good vehicle for kind of thinking through reinvestment in our corridor, because that is one place that we really do need to work collaboratively. And I think that's a good opportunity there. So that's what I would say about Gateway CDC. But thank you for bringing this up. I echo what Luke and Jarrett said. And I look forward to hearing more about this proposal going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. I will tell you what my frustration is with the team. Is basically I brought this in proposal about 6 months ago and nobody did nothing about it, right? So I did ask you guys to be able to fund quite a few things and it wasn't. I was told that that could be a and reduce and blah, blah, blah. I was even open to reducing the amount, right? So I will say this to you. I'm fine with having this line item. Kamali start looking where we're going to cut off. If this is recreational activities we're planning off, start looking into that as well, because I do need to make sure we balance out the budget. I don't think it's wise for us to open the budget before we even put it out. We had literally just turned in the budget for us to turn around and do anything to it. So this is going to take a little bit of time to get it through. What I will say is I think that sometimes when we call things we don't have people in the council that look like certain members of our community. People tend to forget I'm Afro-Latina and I'm tired of having to defend myself and who I represent more than one identity. So I will say that please be careful with the words that I said because they are hurtful. And it's constant that I have to remind people who I am, right? In saying that, I'm happy to work towards a resolution to make sure that it's not just for African Americans, but also for AAPI. And other community members as well, as some of you guys did mention, in order to make sure we have various events. I understand that the city staff might not be able to carry it all. And we might have to lean on what the rec committee was created, right? To create recreation activities. So maybe we could have a subcommittee even under that to be able to have enough volunteers to carry some of these cultural events, because it does takes a lot of tear and wear. I'll tell you this, for my Rainier Day alone, we've been planning since November of last year to make it happen. And everything in the kitchen sink has been thrown to the staff and it's been a lot trying to just make it happen. Okay. So I will say to you guys, I look forward to seeing a proposal and how this will work and more or less what groups we're going to try to work on and figure out if there's other entities that are utilizing some of the funds in the city to do this program that may be gone. And part of it was for Asian Americans. We had touched before when it came to Diwali, right? Asian American Month, LGBTQ as an example, right? Women's Month, Latino Heritage. There are a lot of Latino events. And I know we only celebrate one, right? But there's quite a few of them as well. So we pile it up in one day and that's fine. So that's something that conversation needs to happen, whether they want to spend their money in one day or spread across the year. That's something that we're going to have to go ahead and figure out if that's what we're going to do. And also start looking for places in our budget that we're going to have to cut to make sure we fund this important line item. Okay. All right.
If I could.
Can you hold on 1 second, Danielle? Let me speak. All right. So moving on to the next item. So I'm going to ask you guys if you have any additional comments. Go ahead. This will be the second round. There are comments in the chat I want to make sure I address. And I believe that we also been told there's a 2-minute mark also. So I'm going to go ahead and request more time to be added to the clock because I think we might be down to the 1-minute mark at this point.
I move for additional time to be added.
I need to know specific time.
5 minutes.
There's a motion to have 5 minutes. It's been properly second in discussion. Objection, abstention, hearing none. We're going to add, Melissa, go ahead and add 5 more minutes I'm pretty sure we already ran out of the first time. All right, so I'm opening the floor to the council for the second round. Go ahead.
I did want to let you all know that I'm not expecting you to, and I'm not asking for the budget to be amended. I mean, right now, before we go through and vote, this is something that I would like to see a budget amendment down the road in this fiscal year, because February is a few months away. So this is something that we can I talked to Ron already. We can pick a little bit here and there to create the line item. So as you know, I'm not trying to, bully the passing of the current budget in front of us. It's not my budget, but it's an amendment that we can address down the road. So thank you.
Council, since it's customary, somebody else said something, I'll open. Let me know whether you guys want to take your time to go ahead and say something. Luke, I see your mic open. Jared, I see your mic open. Luke, does that mean you want to say something?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say the
Okay.
other thing that is, I think, something we should be mindful of is the interplay between, we sort of have like events that happen that the city does or one of the elected officials kind of controls, and then we have the recreation committee, which is supposed to do recreation. And so one thing that I've always struggled with is staff capacity to do things. I'm really nervous about the stuff that we have staff capacity to do. So that to the extent we want this to not be run out of the recreation committee, to be run by, the city, just would love to get feedback. I think Danielle, it'd be good for you to just work with the city manager on what that looks like and what sort of capacity they need to provide to you, so that when you come back with the plan, you can say, this is what we think the city could do, or the city would need extra capacity here, or we need to hire a contract out there. I think just understanding that would be really good for some of these events. And I'm not saying that for you, Danielle. This isn't like because you brought this policy, I have that question. It's just sort of a question I have with all the events that we're running as a city that I think we need to consider, because I know there's just a lot placed on staff to do a lot of things for a lot of events throughout the year. And I think it's just important that we have that feedback from the city manager on what sort of support and resources they need from us to make sure we can do not just this, but like everything else. So I just want to be clear on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Luke. Jared, you had your mic open to say something. Go ahead.
Yep. No, just directly again, Danielle, very much in support. We just do need to figure out either, as Luke said, everything's kind of a trade-off of staff and budget. So we just need to, if we're going to make it a budget amendment sometime in the next year, we need to think about, where that comes from, what we stopped doing, what we cut back on. And especially sometimes it can be challenging. I mean, it's certainly possible, but especially if we're going to create something that has an ongoing cost, that we definitely want to think about how we can make sure we can sustain that in the time past the initial year. So, but yeah, thank you for bringing this forward. I did want to appreciate you and folks that have come to provide comments as well. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Jared, I'm not sure if you cut off, but I guess you should show your mic off. Valerie, besides me, you'll be the last one in the deck.
I don't have anything to add on this right now. Thank you. Look forward to the proposal.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go to the chat. In the meantime, I guess we're going to have to get to work on and figure out what the funding is. My point when I mentioned the rec committee is it seems like the city's been picking up a lot more recreational events, right? So therefore, there has to be a balance. So if we continue picking up some of the rec events, even some of the reason why the grants were done, I know they have helped fund Juneteenth last year. They have helped fund Diwali the previous year as well. So we need to really look into what the rec committee is doing and figure out if they're not funding those items, then that could be also a place to be able to withdraw some funding in order for us to be able to get to this amount. Because even if it's $3,000 across, you're talking about, we just mention a good amount of it, so it's quite a bit. So I would say that if the city, the rec committee was, mainly a lot of times was done because the city wants to pick up a lot of the events. So if that's the case, we also need to look into that and figure out what exactly they're going to be doing and not doing. And if that's the case, to pull some resources from there, especially if if it's going to be dedicated completely to a whole item they no longer need to address. So because if LGBTQ, that they also do, Juneteenth, they also fund, and Diwali, they fund, if those three items are funded from there, and if a line item wants to be put separately, that could be a place for them, for us to put money aside to make sure that's created on it as well. All right. So I'm gonna open up the floor up to the residents. Let me see, who do I have? Okay, let me see this. Jared, thank you everybody. Valerie. I think this one you already addressed it. Have Rainier Robinson for 300 block of Harrison. CD is not fair representation of residents, or residents are not members of CDC. It should have separate community work projects. I think it was more of like the city, who's the entity, working potentially with Gateway as a resource. So be a combined effort. They are doing the Afro-Caribbean Festival is happening on June 27th, and the Afro-Caribbean Collective are actually going to be working with Gateway CDC to put their event. I believe this is their second or third annual. That's going to be on June 27, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be happening out in on Perry. I think it's next to, I think at this point it's next to Penny Royal Station. So there is reference of them working collectively with other groups in order to make sure balance it out a little bit. So that way, you know, our dollars can only stretch so much, but in working collaboration, it does help. Let me just read the comments. It's not a fair presentation of resident or resident members of CC. Once again, I think I already answered that one. Okay, basically it's a unity effort. The city will be the side of the rest of the residents. Okay, perfect. Anything on Facebook, Jared? Jared. Thank you so much. All right, so we're gonna move on to item number 9. Discussion recommendation for creation of African American History Committee. We'll introduce a recommendation to create a committee whose purpose will be to create a programming that will enhance outreach, education, engagement within the community as a whole. So go ahead, Danielle, you have about a minute or two for introduction. If you could stick to it as much as you can.
Okay, going off the same premise as the line item for African American heritage, the same logic holds true as to why this committee should be created. This ad hoc committee should comprise of members of the African American community here in Mount Rainier, whose goals are to help create programming that will enhance outreach, education, and engagement within the community, as well as planning events to help celebrate African American Heritage Month if the majority of the committee desires. This agenda, this item right here would, the creation of this Heritage Committee Commission would allow the city oversight on the spending of the aforementioned line item funds to make sure, as with any other committee, that the funds are being spent accordingly. So this committee, the creation of this committee would be specifically for planning, education, outreach, and programming for African American Heritage Month. To use the line item that I've proposed to be created. And to make a point on something that you mentioned before, this has absolutely nothing to do with the Recreation Committee, not a single thing at all. This is literally just asking for a line item and the creation of a city oversight committee to oversee the spending and creating of programming, so as to reduce the taxing of city resources and the staff. So they would be in charge of creating things, and then kind of like with other committees. And so yeah, that's my proposal for that. I also have other special considerations that I can discuss in email, but that's my proposal to create this committee to oversee the aforementioned line item.
Okay, Jared, Luke, Valerie.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Danielle, for bringing this forward. I think, you know, I certainly supportive of the intent. You know, I agree that, you know, the African American experience in Mount Rainier is longstanding and often been very difficult, as I've alluded and spoken to, and I know several members of our previous councils have experienced, such as Mayor Miles, who was one of the first in the state and for the city as well. So, you know, I think would be kind of good to know sort of the, you know, if you kind of look at the arc of our committees and the roles they serve, just, you know, to maybe get a kind of a fleshed out idea of what what this could look like, how that would interplay with other both city held events, as Luke has mentioned. Some events were kind of carried forth by the city. Some are supported by other groups. For example, the Recreation Committee. As well, I know this is not a Recreation Committee thing. The Recreation Committee in the past, has taken on, I would say, kind of ethnic or affinity group events, for example, related to Pride, and just kind of figure out the interplay of what it would look like, how that would work. You said an ad hoc committee, so it sounds like it would be just constituted temporarily. But just kind of let a better sense of structure. One thing I do want to just kind of again reflect is one of and I think bringing this voice and bringing this history forward is important. Is one of 4 Asian Americans in a city council in the entire state of Maryland. I would ask maybe we can find some ways to kind of help elevate the broad diversity as a whole, while we also elevate African American history. And a voice as well. There's there's a lot of different groups: African immigrants, Latin American immigrants, Asian immigrants, and other folks in this town that I don't want to, while elevating some voices and voices that have been, I would say, arguably silenced and held quiet for long, that we don't want to leave other folks out. So, I often reflect to people that, I was like, did you know the first Asian American mayor in the United States was actually in this county? And virtually no one ever knows that. So is it literally, I know you did, but virtually no one else. Yeah, I know you did, Selena, but virtually no one else ever does, and I just want to make sure we should elevate voices that have not been heard, but I want to think about ways we can also, look at and support all voices, additional voices in the community as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Valerie, Luke, I apologize. Sorry, 9/11. I'm trying to make sure we make it to our cutoff. Go on.
Thank you. I mean, I'm generally would be supportive of this. I would like to see a little bit more information about what the committee will do. You said ad hoc. I don't know that ad hoc is a great idea for a committee, just because it doesn't seem like it's structured appropriately to get things done, if that's what you intend. So I would just suggest that, putting together a proposal that we can look at and read and respond to, I think would be helpful as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Luke, the mic's yours.
I think I agree with everything Valerie said. Appreciate you taking the time to bring this to the agenda and get this in front of us to talk about. I think just having the structure worked out and what that ad hoc nature would be, I think would be helpful to see how many people you'd want on the committee and how long it would run. We do have a lot of committees, which we'll go through later. We have trouble finding residents for all of them. So, maybe it's a chance to kind of look at all of our committees and think through what's the best way for us to work here. But just thank you for bringing this up and excited to see more structure around it. Thanks.
Thank you, Luke. I'm leaning towards that. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of an ad hoc committee, just because the STAR events are going to be happening every year. And it kind of feels like if you have an ad hoc visit for 1 year, right? So it feels like they're going to redevelop the wheel every single year. I think there has to be some consistency on it. The other thing for me, I want to point out when it comes to elevating the other voices, if we're doing this ad hoc committee for one group, what else it looks like for the other groups when it comes to resources, but also at the same time, when it comes to people, when it comes to stuff, I know there's various committees that we are sure and we continue fulfilling to it. But definitely, I think based also on the previous conversation, we want to look into what those ad hoc committees will be, the role, the people right on it, like the composition of it. How many members, is it 3 people? Is it 5 people? What does it look like? What does it look like for the city? What does it look like when it comes to things that the city is already picking up? As well as do we have the broadband to be able to take care of it? Because I will tell you, even with the communities that we have right now, we are stretched very thin. and we'll get a view of what they look like right now. The other part is that it is important to figure out what it look like for the other groups. I know we have mentioned that there's at least 2 or 3 events that have come out from the rec committee. Another alternative would probably be like, put a subcommittee within the rec committee so that way they have a home, and they work temporarily on those events. I know at least for the Pride event, one of our residents, Bob, is very key in pulling a lot of the resources along with the rest of the rec committee. So if they could have an AHA committee housed under a committee, maybe that'll facilitate it, but definitely open it to the other entities that are heavily underrepresented in the city as well. Okay, so that is my thought. I'm gonna go around to figure out if anybody else in the council. Danielle, can I finish my sentence? I'm gonna go around to see if anybody else in council would like to make another comment. I'm gonna go ahead and open the floor for the second round, and then I'm gonna open it out to the community. Go ahead. I said, Danielle, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you said you were opening up to the rest of the council. First of all, I want to, I have all those answers to the questions that you guys were saying. I was just told I had a very short introductory time, so I didn't read all the stuff about the creation and the idea of the number of people. My use of the word ad hoc was more or less one single focused purpose instead of just a one singular time. So maybe it was just the wrong use of words, but it's not a one time only, it's just a one purpose committee. So their purpose is African American Heritage Month. So my apologies for the use of the wrong terminology. And I will be more than happy to address the way I see the makeup of it, the special considerations for volunteers and people to join it in the community, in an email between the two of us, and we can discuss it at a later date. I just wanted to make sure that I brought it to the attention and before the committee or the council so that we could discuss it and plant the seed for the development of this.
So Danielle, I would say send the paperwork to the rest of the council so we are more in the same page. It makes life a little bit easier when we're having discussions. So whatever documents, you'll just send it to the collective, and then we'll figure out. But I think that what I'm hearing from overall from the team from this line item and the other one is like how we also apply to other groups, not just one specifically. So usually when it comes to the Asian, Latino, LGBT and stuff like that as well, so that way the other groups are also representative within their collective. So this is going to be ad hoc for ethnic groups, what it will look like when it comes to not just one group but others as well. Okay, so I'm gonna, Jerry, is there anything on Facebook? Thank you so much. So I have Sharnette. Sharnette, I need you to do me a favor. If you're gonna write and you want me to read it, just put quotations read. And if you're gonna speak, just put speak. So that way I don't read and then you also speak, and I don't wanna cut you off. So Sharnette, do you wanna speak or do you need me to read it?
I'll go ahead and speak.
Go ahead. So
I just want to say, I did say that I don't think the CDC is a fair representation. I think that I'm scrolling through my notes. Residents should be allowed to sit on more than one committee because you don't have a lot of residents that are volunteering to be on different committees. And I think as long as there's not a conflict of interest, that should be considered to allow residents who want to be on more and want to work to do those things. I'm sure I'm not the only retired person around here that doesn't mind participating. I think that we should also remember that through colonialization, there are very few African Americans that are not of some type of mixed heritage. They may identify as African American, but there are a lot of people that are through colonialization. That's just the way it is. So, and then Danielle, I appreciate you putting this forward. We had discussed this before during the last Juneteenth celebration, trying to make sure that it's not just Juneteenth that we work for, but for the entire Black History Month, to make sure, and especially with this critical race theory type thing going around, we need to make sure that people know their history and know their heritage and just kind of work in that result in that regard. And again, there are several types of Blacks in this community. So I don't know if you'll be able to just separate it and say that it's African American, but I think that you can work to bring together people in doing something like this. So Daniel, I appreciate you bringing it forward. And I would love an opportunity to work on a committee like this, to work with different people or bring a committee together that's just a mixture of different people to work on getting our city more, just more together and more aligned with working with one another. So that's kind of
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharnette. Just to clarify, there's only one committee that is not allowed to cross over to other committees, and that's the Police Advisory Board. All the other committees that considered it is mainly because of sensibility of the issue, because they advise the mayor and council when it comes to the budget of the PD, when it comes to the work order of the PD, and they basically, their job is to advise the council when it comes to those items. That's the reason why it was decided that that's the committee that they can only sit in one. All the other committees, there's more than the members have including quite a few of the people here that are in this chat right now. They have joined more than one committee. So that will only affect 5 people. And if they do not want to be part of the Police Advisory Board, that was one of the caveats that was informed to them before they decided to run or decided to be selected. If they choose not to be part of the Police Advisory Board, they're welcome to also resign and join a different committee. But at this point, since the beginning of the Police Advisory Board committee documents, it was stated that that committee specifically cannot cross over to any committee to make sure there was no conflict of interest whatsoever. All right, so anybody else? Robin, same thing for you. If you want me to read it, put read, or if you want to say it, go ahead and say it. Robin?
She wants you to read it.
She wants me to read it. So can you guys make sure you put read on it? Because if not, I won't read it. Because then it's like I read it and then you guys speak. It's like we make this longer than need be. Okay, Robin Bliss from 3000 block of 30th Street. Thanks, Danielle. Support any effort to increase equality, inclusion, and participation in our community and hear from voices we don't normally hear from. Wonder if elementary schools could be involved. I'm pretty sure the PTOs will be involved. I know they do various events through like Valerie, turn on Valerie. I know for a fact they do I know because I go to the schools quite a bit. I know both elementaries, they have a whole theme for like the ethnic months, whether it's African American, Latino, women, LGBTQ, teachers, principals, the climate, bike. I mean, they do themes and that includes educational, history, art, reading. Am I missing something, Valerie?
No, they do a lot of cross-sector work as well. So, just a lot of cross-sector collaboration and things like this, and every different thing you could think of, they do it. So. Yeah, music set and everything. Yeah, because I get the books and I get the documents as well sent home. All right, thank you. All right, so moving on to the next item. Oh, sorry guys, it's gonna be close. ARPA discussion update number 30. Mayor and Council will discuss the status of projects including streets and sidewalks upgrade up to $100,000. Are we ready to discuss this today, or are we postponing this for our legislative meeting? Luke, where are we?
I think we could postpone this one to the legislative meeting. We've talked about this before. We could talk about it briefly for 10 minutes. The idea would be increasing the streets and sidewalks budget in ARPA by at least $100,000. I would be totally open to doing more. We have about $459,000 in remaining funds in ARPA. But, open to hear what, if maybe folks could give their idea on whether they're open to it at the $100,000 level or whether they'd want to do it, whether they're open to more. I think that's the only thing we need to cover today, and then we can tee it up for the legislative session.
So council, where are you with it? You want to have the discussion on it, or you still want to see what the report looks like? Or because we are down to the 400,000, and I tell you, Kamali, Mr. Kamali and I actually received a proposal today. We're going to share with Mayor and Council because we literally just got it right now. I'm not sure if you guys were copied, but I would say, Council, what did you say? How are you feeling? You want to postpone this, or you guys want to just vote on it? I mean, I will tell you this: June is our last legislative meeting. Right now, Mr. Kamali, how much do we have in ARPA money? Or Luke, how much money do we have in ARPA money from here to in ARPA money period when it comes to street and sidewalks?
For streets and sidewalks right now, we have nothing allocated yet. We took 100,000 out of the city budget, so we definitely need to allocate 100,000. But then we have 459,500 of potential ARPA funds we could fund for anything. And you know, I would like to take a lot of that for streets and sidewalks, but I know other people have different priorities. Thanks.
Look, I just want to make sure that I get my $100,000 because that was transferred from the budget.
Yep, I hear you.
Okay, so there's a proposal for us to add to the legislative meeting in June, $100,000 from the ARPA for us to vote. We don't have to have big speeches. If your thumb is up, we'll move it over. If not, nah, where are you? Valerie?
Yeah, I'm good with definitely moving the 100,000 over. If we want to move more over, I'm fine with that as well.
Okay, Jared, 100,000, good?
Yeah, I'm supportive. Thank you.
Danielle?
I'd like to try to save as much as possible, but I'm also afraid that we may lose it come June 1st. So I'm fine with moving it over.
So Luke, can we do we're going to do 100,000 at least to move it over so we could reserve that as we're getting also, we should be coming out to consensus, but I know there's line item in the budget, and now with this 100,000 should be at least balance what we originally had proposed. And then we are at about 300,000 from ARPA, correct? More or less?
Yeah.
Because I need to make sure we don't override a couple things as we're working on the beginning stages of Richardson Park, as we're working on a couple of stages that, programs that they've asked, and anything else that might be coming. I know we have, we still need to figure out like the discussion on the solar panels, even if it's one building instead of all of them, right? So those are things that we're going to have to tackle with whatever's left over before we like comb through the ARPA and figure out what to do next. Mr. Kamali, if you could also talk to our consultants so that way they could guide us when it comes to what we need to do to relocate funding, if need be, from what we already voted on. It definitely will help us. Okay.
Sure. We'll take it up.
Perfect. So that way, if there's a line item that we know already we do not need to use in that, we could figure out if we could relocate some of the money for that as well. All right. So Luke, can you go ahead? Mr. Kamali, your mic.
No, I said I will do that, Mayor. I will reach out to the consultant and find out how we can do that.
Perfect. And also talk to Lisa in case there's something we need to do. Okay, sure. So Luke, can we as always count on you to make sure you highlight that in whatever color is, you highlight it on that says like it's moving towards to legislative, and then work to make sure it's on the agenda with Melissa. Melissa, make sure you write it down. The $100,000 will be approved from ARPA. Okay, to be proposed to be approved for June. Those will be the correct words. All right. Perfect. Thank you guys so much. So let me see. Tony, is this this item? We are asking people to put their block number and their street on the comment if they would like to speak, and it has to be related on front of us. Okay, so we're talking about streets and sidewalks right now. All right, go ahead. Tony? The mic is yours, Tony. You have a comment to make about street and sidewalks?
It's actually, it's related to ARPA and storm management. So I don't know if this is the place or if I can do this now. It's quick.
Go. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask, in terms of storm management, ARPA money, there was funding on Arundel Street back in 2020, and I sent Mr. Kamali a picture of cars that were floating in the water. And I'm wondering, is any attention or are there any plans to look at that in terms of flooding in the future and factoring that part of the city into the storm management plan? People lost cars, they were floating from the floodwaters. So I'm just curious, is Arundel Street addressed in any of the city's plans in terms of storm management and ARPA funding?
Mr. Kamali or Luke, whichever of you has a document in front of you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can take that question. So there are a couple pieces there. The county is doing a green street, which will have some stormwater fixes from 34th to 31st. So that's already planned. We did a really rough cost estimate of what it would take to do stormwater fixes from 31st all the way Arundel, Varnum to Eastern. And that price tag came in at over $2 million. So that was a little bit too rich for our blood. That being said, if you attended any of the streets and sidewalk study that we've been having a lot of recently, one of the big priority projects is Arundel, and that would include some green infrastructure to help try to capture more stormwater all the way down Arundel, Varnum to Eastern, and then go after federal fundings from the bipartisan infrastructure bill, where we could get something like the couple million, 3 million to actually fund that project. So we looked at it in ARPA, decided not to do that because that would eat away almost half of the ARPA funding, and we had a lot of different priorities, but it is a core piece of the street and sidewalk study we're doing, and we'll be front and center to try to get even more money from the feds on that front. So
I'm glad you did mention federal funding and infrastructure, because as a union carpenter, that's a big item in an agenda for us. So I know that federal funding will be available. So I hope that will be a priority for the city to go after some of the federal funding to address some of those issues.
Okay, so thank you, Tony, and thank you, Luke, for answering. So remember, if you're a member of the audience, you do your questions, submit it, and they'll go ahead and answer, but we cannot have back and forth. Now, we're not going to get across this agenda at all. And I still have a couple good items in here. All right. Can you go ahead and, there you go. Thank you so much. All right. So Kamali, Melissa, Luke, we're all clear? Yes. Thank you, Luke, for keeping track of this for the rest of us, and Kamali and Melissa as well. All right, so I know Rocio's gonna be very happy to know like her $100,000 went back into a line item. They didn't disappear. So moving on to the next item.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, I apologize, guys. So I mentioned earlier, I was at the airport. My flight got delayed, and I was supposed to land before this started. Flight's about to take off in about 10 minutes, so I will need to jump in about probably 5. I apologize.
Perfect. You're good. We're right on track. Thank you for being here. It wasn't your fault that the flight got delayed. You have been very good at being in meetings, so appreciate that. Your consistency on it as well, Jared. Okay. So discussion and proposed council recess for July and August 2023. We do this every year. This basically means that the first and the second Tuesday of the month in July and August, we do not have any meeting. That does not mean we are not working or meeting or doing a bunch of other stuff. It's just a legislative and work session meetings are not happening. This gives a time for the staff to reset as we discuss our priorities, and they know what is it that we want, right? And they get to work on it, and also gives them a time for them to take a breather, if possible, since we have a very heavy legislative season that usually starts around end of August, beginning of September, and it goes nonstop until almost the last day of June. It also gives them for our financial team to get everything else they need and be able to get us ready for the next legislative team. All right, so council is just there. I know Jared's maybe still hanging on. We're good. Thumbs up. You guys want to add anything? If not, thumbs up and let's move on to the next item. Luke, anything? You're good? All right. So Melissa's going to add it to the legislative agenda for June for us to vote on it. And that's basically the whole discussion on that one. Okay. All right. Moving on to item number 12, discussion on committee assignments. The mayor and council have discussion on their committees and assignments. All right, Melissa, do you have the document in front of you? The other thing is we're trying to work potentially with Melissa, right? To be able to organize a little bit the committees. So council liaisons, we're gonna need your help on getting this across, including having a meeting with the chairs or co-chairs in order to get open meeting completed and the various things that we need. We have revamped our online portal where committee members need to be submitting their information, their resume, and any additional document that is needed. Sometimes is, documents that legally they have to sign, right? And they also work with our legal team to make that happen. But that way we'll have a record of who our committee members are, when their term expires, when we need to reappoint them. And it's also part of Open Meetings Act that our residents are aware on who the committee members are and who are making decisions in the various committees, because the committees are funded by city money, which is taxpayers' money. So therefore, they know what they're also doing with their funding or what decisions they're making. All right. So for Gateway CDC, just as a run through of the committee liaisons that we already have, Valerie Woodall is our council liaison for CDC. For the Anacostia Trails Historic Association, AFA, that is Jared Stoffes, and it tells you more or less what the description looks like. I believe now in our website also says what committees we belong to, so that way residents are aware if they need to get a hold of us. All right, Anacostia Trail Historical Association, AFA governing body, that is Jared as well. They basically usually been together. PGCMA, that is me. MRBA, that is me. Also, if you notice on some of this, we're going to be filling in who the committee members are. Like an example, MRBA, I am the liaison, although it's not a city committee. It does has the name of like who the president, vice president, treasurer, and everybody else. So that way we know who to reach and who speaks on behalf of the committee, right? There you go. Tool shed, that one we have vacant. And for the tool shed right now, we only have Kathy as a member. So we're going to have to need that information. Whoever the liaison is, you guys are going to have to provide information and send the members to the portal so that way they could fill in all their information and we could be appointed by mayor and council. All right, next one. For the Board of Elections, we do not have a liaison. That is not a council member. That is a city staff, and in this case, is our clerk, who is the city staff, who is the city liaison on behalf of us. That way, they reach out before for information, but however, that keeps us out of trouble, especially because of the election rotations, and we do not interfere with that. All right, community emergency response in the CERT team, it is vacant, and you have who is the members. You have Melissa, Mark, Rachel. Lieutenant Sim is the city liaison. That's going to have to change. And Tim is also one of the members, and we'll go ahead and work on the list of the membership for this one as well. Continue going, Melissa. You have Linda, Robin as well. All right, LMUTC. This is the liaison is Jared. The members you see currently on the board are the ones we have just recently suggested for appointment. On behalf of council, they have not been confirmed by LMUTC, but they're there for right now. MUTC will let us know. Jerry and myself are following up with Daniel and also the new Mahat to make sure that we know when they'll be appointed. The Design Review Board, it is currently vacant. And you have Tony, Nathan, Design Review Chair, and board member. You have Jadel, Lance, Edbed, and Brian is no longer a member, so we're going to have an opening there for a community member. We're trying to see if by any ways, like for Mount Rainier Day, we could put a list of the openings for for members. So that way, if somebody needs information and they'd like to join a committee, they'll know where to go. The Ethics Commission, our clerk is the staff liaison, and we do not have we don't have a city liaison because of the committee. All right, let me see. Thank you. Green Team, we have Chesek, and a staff liaison, we have Rocio. Sarah was appointed in 2018 as chair, and it looks like we're up for reappointment for Sarah, 18, 19, 20. So we're gonna get better at this, okay? Keep going. Sarah, you're doing a wonderful job, so I don't think you're escaping us. Then we have the Tree Commission. We have Luke as chair, Rocio as liaison, who's also a tree expert. And then you have the members of the Tree Commission, right? All right there, okay? With Judy, I believe, being the last member that was included. So make sure you put the date on that. For, it says Youth and Recreation Committee, we have Valerie and Melissa as Sam. We don't have a chair, and we have Bob and Roshni as members. Going, and Stephanie. All right. For the bike co-op, we have Jared as the council liaison, and Mike and Patricio. So I think that one also needs to be added, if I remember correctly. Yep. Next one, can everybody mute, please? Garden Committee, Melissa and Jared, can you go ahead and mute everybody else? Community Garden, we have Valerie as the liaison, and we have the members right there. We have Noah and Marilyn Thibault as garden members. Keep going. Parking Task Force, that is vacant. I think that one, we just left it alone, and we haven't put any movement on it. Then we have the Youth Scholarship Committee. That one definitely needs to be added because it has my wrong email address, Melissa, and it says Councilor instead of Mayor. So that has to be changed, okay? And Melissa's the liaison, and basically my role and Melissa's role is very much, it's being there. They decide. All right, so you moved it. I'm assuming this is Arts Commission, liaison, Luke Chesek, and you have the various members. You have Ariel, you have Tori, you have Rachel, you have Sharon, and you have Mike, okay? Chair Overview Committee, that is vacant. We have put a pause on until we got the vision and strategy get moving. Police Advisory Board, we need a county council liaison, and I have Tony, Intisar, Shanae, Shavali, and Valerie Aselinsky, not Valerie Woodall. All right, keep going. Vision Steering Task Force, I have Luke and Jared. Can you make sure you write council member next to Jared as well? And, Mike stepped down. So, Luke, you're gonna have to work on proposing a chair. If you already have a chair in mind, if you could bring it up to the June one, it definitely will help, okay? If not, we'll open it up. Me and Melissa will work with you and figuring out what do you need out there when it comes to information out, okay? All right, perfect. Oh, and that's like the rest of the report. I was like, it is 9:42, guys. We're almost there, okay? All right, so you guys saw there's a bunch of openings. I need to know where you're at. If you want to take any of those openings right now. Council, if there's any committee you want to let go to pick one up, let me know as well. If not, if you're sticking to the ones that you have, then that is great. There is one that is not added there, and I didn't see it, and I apologize if I didn't see it, which is the Youth Advisory Board. That's the one I created, so I'm going to definitely be picking that one up because it's my creation. Okay, so that needs to be added if it's not already there. Okay, sorry, Melissa, if we skipped it. Okay, all right. So, Luke, I'm going to start with you. How are you with the committees? Is there anything, how do you call it, going by seniority? Is there anything in particular one, do you have any of your committees currently you no longer are gonna be working with? And two, so that'll be step one. Is there anything you're gonna like put up for grab, I guess would be the right statement? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of at capacity right now, so I wouldn't want to take anything else on. I'd be willing to start transitioning the Arts Commission. I think it'd be helpful for me to stay on because we probably need to do another round of sort of getting people on the commission as we get ready for them to do a project next year. And I think it would be helpful for me to be there just to explain what the last two commissions have done and kind of their work. But I would be open to transitioning that sort of through the year. And so if somebody would want to come on board with that with me and kind of learn and then transition, totally open to that. Thanks.
So are you proposing ideally like as another liaison to join you?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair way to put it.
Okay, perfect. And the other ones, you're good? All right, perfect. I don't see Jared, so
I'm on.
Oh, go ahead, Jared. Anything from your committees
Can you hear
that
me?
yeah. Are we good with your committees? Are you
Yeah,
anything
I'm
or
fine. Yeah, I have a LMUTC, which is pretty busy. And you see, I have ATHA and Bike Co-op. And then Luke and I have taken Vision Zero over, at least for the duration of, the next year. I'd also be happy to take on the Police Advisory Committee. I have a lot of, obviously, long history of working in the city and budgeting, and would be happy to, we've added a number of committees. I want to step up my involvement. And I think something that I've been involved in helping shape the budget and approach for, it's something I'd be more than happy to take on.
Perfect. Thank you, Jared. I think that because it's a new committee, definitely will help having you guided as well. Okay. Okay. So thank you. Valerie, you're next on the list. Where are you? Are you good with your committees? Need to add anything? You see what does it look like to you?
Thank you. I am I'm good with my committees for right now. I am potentially, if we get the, I have two questions. One, the tool shed. I think maybe the community garden was thinking about working on something like that. So that's one thing to put our pin in our head. And the other thing is, if we do set up a parking task force, I would love to participate in that because I think that's something that will be needed as we continue to move forward with things. So.
Okay. So tool shed, put an asterisk, Melissa. Basically, that that if it falls under the garden committee, it might be a combined committee. Is that what more or less you're letting me know, Valerie?
Yeah, they were interested in doing an initiative like that. So I think if there's going to be a community tool shed, I think that would be a good place to put it for now, just to see what they can do. But I don't know yet. We have to think through that a little more. But yes.
All right. So we'll put you temporary there if they merge. Okay, because right now I know they're on hold. I just have some email going back and forward. Thank you for that. You know what I realized? I put myself on the end of the seniority when I am not at the end of the seniority. I'm in the top of the seniority. All right. So in very basic ones, I love my committees that keep me really busy. And I do have some of the committees that are not shown there are also our heavy involvement with the Maryland Municipal League. And also when it comes to like the NLC, right? As an example, along with PGCMA and the Business Association for the city, the Scholarship Committee, the Youth Advisory Board, all that fun stuff, and obviously the Junior Mayor Program that keeps me very busy with all my wonderful young junior mayors. So I'm good at this point with the ones that I have. I'll continue working on it. If by any chance I need a little support on it, I'll let you guys know in case like I have a conflict of interest. I know at times I have to be in 3 places at once and it's not always doable, right? So I will call on for help from either like the current vice mayor or the previous vice mayor, one of you. Okay. I know how much you guys love my meetings. we have a good record. All right. So moving on to the next, Danielle, you are the new council member. Do you see anything that's open that you will, well, basically everything that's open, like you could definitely take it all, but do you see anything that's open that you like, except for, I guess, tool shed and the police advisory board, I believe that's it. And the arts commission will be creating, hold on, Danielle, just make sure we're on the same page. We'll be creating co-liaison, I guess that's what we'll call it. Luke, we're good with that, co-liaison? Okay. position for the Arts Commission. If you also want to take on that one. Okay, go ahead, Danielle.
Okay, well, the first thing I'd like to do is, because of my history and experience with the Recreation Committee, I would respectfully ask if Valerie would mind if I take that over as liaison.
So, Danielle, I think that first you'll focus on everything that's open. And Valerie did say that she was not, she wants to stay with her committees. So that was already addressed.
Okay. Well, then I would like to take CERT. I would love to work with Luke on the Art Commission, and with my experience as a first responder, I was actually going to ask about police board myself. So my wish list was Rec Committee, CERT, Police Board, and Art Commission. But Tool Shed, isn't that on hold right now? Didn't you say that's on hold?
Tool Shed will probably fall under the Garden Committee, and the Garden Committee is under Valerie. So
okay,
they're working on potentially combining it. But Melissa, what's open aside? So you said the co-liaison for the Arts Commission. So okay, do you have a capability to type on this by any chances? Then you also I'm trying to remember which is the ones that Jamie have that are open. All right, so CERT team, that'll be Danielle. Yeah, Jared, it makes sense because it is a brand new committee, so you're gonna need extra help. So design review board, Danielle, that also will be on you as well.
I have no idea what they do.
They trust me. Half of us picked up the committees without knowing what they entail, and then they'll walk you through. But this is a seasoned members on it, so therefore it will be helpful for you because they know what to do. So therefore it will help you guide the stuff that in the process that needs to happen. Okay, so that'll be the design review board.
And then yeah, I guess just those two committees, and co-chairing with Luke. So
okay, so parking task force, since Valerie, you said you wanted it, go ahead. If something's being done there, that will help us for the next the Vision Zero. I can never say that thing correctly. The Vision Zero project. So go. Is this the top or the bottom of the list, Melissa?
The bottom.
All right, so move, if you could, so our commission right there will be, if you could add Danielle to it.
May I do the update after the meeting?
Okay, perfect. So according to your notes, who do we have right now? So CERT, Danielle's gonna do CERT. Then she has DRB, unless she doesn't want to, but Valerie says she'll take it. But be aware, guys, that some of these community meetings meet quite a bit. So if you already have a full deck, it's gonna be even more work for you guys. DRB is the Design Review Board. Okay, so move it up, Melissa. Move it down, whatever it is, the top of the page. So Police Advisory Board, Jared will take on it. Okay. Vision Zero, that's a long and short term thing right now. Okay, so keep going the opposite direction. So arts, you're gonna be co-liaison, Danielle. Yep. Parking, Valerie. You go go ahead. Community garden, potential tool shed. So we might be able to combine those committees. That's good. Hold on, bike co-op. Who has that one? That was you, Jared. I don't know. Okay, Jared's there. Go ahead. Go down. I think that's all the committees. I think we're all covered. That's DRB. Okay. Then we have CERT. Go ahead. That's Danielle. And then Tusha, you could combine them. Valerie, if it's combined, it will help us tremendously, just mainly because it will allow us for us to like cut, it is a challenge to get volunteers. So that it definitely will help, So thank you for that. All right. I will suggest if you have any questions about the committees, I'm happy to help. Any of you guys, I think I've said in either sat or volunteer or talk or work on. I think most of this committee, I think Luke, you have the other half. If not, we overlap. I think Jerry and Valerie were the same. So Valerie, Danielle, if you have any questions, you could reach out to the rest of us. I think we have pretty much experience on basically all the other committees. Okay. So just in case you need any help on them. All right, moving on to the next one. All right, presentation of minutes. We don't get to vote, but our team is wonderfully at making sure we're up to date on any minutes and wonderful things that we do. So the city clerk present the following minutes: the mayor and council, April 11, budget meeting. April 18, work session, budget hearing and public work session. April 25th, budget legislative meeting. May 2nd, legislative meeting. May 8th, special legislative meeting and swearing in. So Melissa has provided this minutes in your package. Your job is to look, review, figure out what you want to add, and please, I'm asking you guys, please give her any suggestions you have prior to the meeting. That means if the meeting is the first Tuesday, ideally you have the next 5 days to submit any edits you want to Melissa and her team, because then they get to work on it and they'll put it in the package together. And it's a lot of minutes, okay? If everything's fine, good, happy, dandy, we will approve all those in the June legislative meeting, okay? We're good, thumbs up? So I almost got you guys there. All right, right before the adjournment, can you put the announcements, Melissa, to the list? So the big one is, two big ones. The Bike to Work Day is tomorrow, May 19th. And you'll see the flyers all over the city. We are having a stop at the bike co-op, right, Valerie? Right, bike co-op?
Yes, you're having a stop there. It's May 19th, so it's Friday.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Then we have the rec committee, the City of Rainier rec. Can you guys put City of Rainier on these things because they will belong to the city? 5K, May 20, 7:30 to 10 a.m. Our Rainier Day, which is our big day from 11 to 5. From 11 to 12 is the parade. And from 12 and on is entertainment, fun. And it's also, come out to play at the park. We are going to have a whole entire kids section. Come out and have fun. Bring your kids. A lot of fun stuff. Recreation Committee, City of Rainier Recreation Committee yard sale June 3rd. Our Rainier Elementary School Priest Parade June 9. Recreation Committee Pride Parade June 17. So those are the ones that we have. And I would like to say that for the June legislative meeting, council, please be aware that our youth, our scholarship committee will be proposing the names of the youth, our scholarship that they're proposing for us to award them the scholarship funds. All right. So keep that in mind. And Luca will be sending you an extra email because I need some help with something. Okay. And in the meantime, we'll put together what we need from the liaisons for the committees, which is like applications, resumes, and we'll select an information day for them. So that will at least the members show up from each of the committees. Valerie, since you're chair, can you please make sure you work with the rec committee to work on a chair in order for us to ideally appoint them by the July meeting, June meeting, I apologize, so that we have one, and review anything else they have to figure out what you guys are going to take on and what you guys are planning on doing. So if you could step up to support the team in the meantime, I definitely appreciate it. If you need support, happy to help from far away. So that way you take lead. Okay. So I'm far away. Basically don't call if you don't need me. Right. I'm sure you could do this perfectly fine. And Luke and Jared, thank you for the presentation, also for vision steering the work that you guys did with tool design and the whole entire team, including Kamali, Rocio, Chief, Alma, I believe Econ is also on it, Ron, I think I got everybody else. Sorry if I missed one of you guys. You guys are great. All right, Pink and Jared as well. All right, so everybody can have a motion to adjourn, please, at 7:58 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
It's been probably moving second. Discussion, objection, abstention, hearing none. This meeting has come to an end at 9:59 p.m.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, 29 minutes off, but we got you guys there. Staff, thank you guys so much, and community members for being here. Thank you. Jared, Pink, Melissa. I see Cheryl's also here. I know Chief and Alma might have been here earlier, I think. Thank you guys for all your work. Rocio as well, and the whole entire Rainier collective. All right, so see you guys in 2 weeks. And Luke is not here. But Mr. Kamali, when is the next Vision Zero meeting?
It's on May 25th.
All right, so May 25th, there is a link on the website if you guys want to have any input in case you guys cannot make any meetings, but the slides are going to also be available on our website so you know about in the video. So you guys are working presentations. Go ahead.
Also, Mayor, we have the work session on May 30th, the special work session for presenting the plan to Mayor and Council. Division Zero will be presented to Mayor and Council on work session May the 30th, and June the 6th, the Mayor and Council will vote on it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamali. So we'll go ahead and put information out. If we could have a summary and a link, also send in our e-notification. I think it was sent today, if I'm not mistaken. So residents could see what it was proposed.
It's already out. I think Pink has it and we'll check it. It's already
I think
out.
it went out today. Yeah, I think she sent it out today. All right, thank you guys so much. Have a good night. All right, thank you, team.
Thank you.
All right,
have
bye.
A good night. Bye.